Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all here at EOTA World in Brussels for the EOTA Stakeholder Conference. The last time we had a physical meeting was in 2018, and today we are very happy to see so many of you here live on site, and of course also a warm welcome for the 200 people who are watching us online and remote. Now, the vision of EOTA is to promote trust and transparency in the European construction production market, and I'm really glad to be your MC here today for this meeting. Now, in a way, this conference will also be the chance to celebrate 30 years of EOTA. Now, we had prepared an anniversary, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we had to postpone it and to cancel it. But what better way to celebrate a successful European route to foster innovation in the construction industry than to look ahead? And that's what we will be doing today. This afternoon will be a mix of talks and panel discussions on the review of the construction production regulation and the future of the ETA route. Now, for our remote viewers, of course, you will be able to ask questions. I will come back on that later on, but we have allocated some time to do so, and you will get an app to send in your questions. Now, since this meeting is broadcasted and, of course, recorded, bear with us during the very short technical breaks that we need to move people around here on stage. And now it's my pleasure to welcome the President of EOTA, Sebastian.
Thank you, Valerie. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, dear friends, welcome to 2022 EOTA Stakeholder Conference. This is a unique event where our stakeholders, like the national administrations, like the Commission, like the Parliament members, of course, like the industry representatives, and the other parties, can discuss and influence the progress and future of EDAs, EADs, and of course, EOTA organization itself. To me and my EOTA colleagues, it's also a great pleasure to see you face to face after these 2 years of nightmare of pandemic. Today, EOTA is 32 years old, and we all know that's a good age. We were established originally in 1990 as the European Organization for Technical Approvals in order to coordinate issuing European technical approvals at that time. Then everything changed. In 2013, we all remember, 1st of July, the Construction Products Regulation came into force, and EOTA was renamed European Organization for Technical Assessment in order to coordinate technical assessment bodies issuing European technical assessment and developing European assessment documents. Today, our membership includes 48 members, almost 50, from the European Union member states, but also from Norway, Turkey, and of course Switzerland. We have also 7 observers, and it's my pleasure to underline that we also fill the gap that occurred in the organization after Brexit. Some of our former UK TAPs, they joined the organization again as the observers. And this organization is really international, as we have today the observer from the United States, ICCES, that will give a talk a little bit later on. And ladies and gentlemen, today we are writing a success story. Over 11,000 of ETAs issued for innovative products and manufacturers from different parts of the sector. Also, up to the date, we made available over 600 EADs that the industry can use to start the works on individual ETAs. And today, you will have the great opportunity to learn more about the ETA process and to learn more how the manufacturers are using ETAs to improve reputation, to increase market sales, to strengthen the brands. And ladies and gentlemen, currently the biggest challenge for the organization is to close the gap between the number of cited EADs and adopted EADs. We all know that. It's my pleasure to say that together with the European Commission, we are starting implementation of the joint action plan that should, with increased resources from both sides, solve the backlog of 137, if I remember well, EADs pending for citation in the official journal, and to make them green-lighted until the middle of next year. This is a very important one. And of course, this outlook for the future brings us to the topic of the revision of the construction products regulation. As EOTA, we would like to welcome the proposal from the European Commission published in March this year, as it should be a significant step forward to the common and competitive market, and of course to the sustainable future. And I'm proud to say that in this draft, ETAs and EADs will continue as the supplementary route for the CE marking for innovative construction products. As we are in the beginning of negotiation process, we, of course, as the other stakeholders, are raising some important issues that are crucial for us and for the industry. One of them is the status of the EAD. We would like to discuss if this is feasible to make EADs harmonized technical specifications again, or how can we reach the equivalent status for as the harmonized standards? Also, on the other hand, EOTA would like to make EAD process more predictable and time efficient. Therefore, we are proposing some facilities for the industry and more precise timelines for citation. What we also would like to do is to propose our own draft for the Annex 3 of the new CPR. And finally, EOTA is going digital and is going global. As uptake of digital technologies starts to be one of the key issues for the modern industry, together with our partners, we are working on digital form of ETAs and EADs. More information about this project you will get today during the presentation of the CPE about smart CE marking. And as the global reach of the ETA is shown by the fact that ETAs are requested by the manufacturers from 73 countries around the world, and of course our ambition is to serve remaining 121s, we would like to promote this cooperation, inviting also our international partners to give some interesting presentations today. This brings us to the end of this introduction to our day together. Now I invite you to see something more visual and I think interesting, the new presentation, the new video of EOTA. Let's play. Please enjoy.
For an innovative idea to turn into a successful construction product, reliability, safety, and consistent performance are key. Independent product assessment plays a central role in demonstrating that a construction product meets these criteria. The European Organisation for Technical Assessment, or EOTA, is at the core of one of the most recognised assessment schemes for innovative construction products worldwide, the European Technical Assessment, better known by its acronym ETA. The ETA helps manufacturers bring innovative construction products to the market quickly and safely with CE marking in the European Union and beyond. ETAs are trusted and relied upon by industry stakeholders and authorities around the world. EOTA is a unique network of technical assessment experts. This non-profit organisation brings together the European technical assessment bodies, mandated by their governments to issue ETAs. EOTA's mission is to coordinate the ETA procedure, liaise with stakeholders of the ETA route in the industry, governments and the European institutions, develop state-of-the-art technical specifications for the construction industry. ETAs can be requested for all non-standard construction products, and provide manufacturers with an independent validation of their product's performance in a fast and agile procedure. The ETA can be tailored to the manufacturer's assessment needs and may encompass safety aspects such as stability or fire safety, as well as health, environmental and sustainability aspects. To get your product ETA assessed, select a technical assessment body as a partner to guide you through the process and issue your ETA. Don't wait to benefit from having your construction product's performance independently vetted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Waal, for sharing this welcome with us. Now, the mission is clear: create consistent technical specifications for the European construction industry while facilitating product innovation and improvement. And so we do start with our first speaker, ladies and gentlemen. Please give him a warm welcome, Mr. Gwenole Cozigou from the European Commission, who will be talking about when legislation and the market come together.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm pleased to be with you today for the EOTA Stakeholder Conference. I'd like to thank Sebastian for the invitation as well, because it gives me a good opportunity to share with you some important developments in the ETA route and to offer an insight into what was already mentioned, namely the proposal for a new construction products regulation, a new CPR. But let me first say that the ETA route offers a very specific approach to harmonization, privileging a bottom-up process initiated by manufacturers. In fact, market needs are at the core of the initiation of the ETA route, and this offers manufacturers a great opportunity to innovate and to bring their technical expertise into the European assessment documents development. The ETA route is very much appreciated, as is shown by the significant number of manufacturers who have applied for the development of new EADs to place their new products on the market. After almost 10 years from the entry into force of the CPR, it's clear that this route can deliver technical specifications supporting the market for innovative products. The proposal for a new CPR, as you know, was adopted end of March. But it has two main objectives. Perhaps it's good to recall them. The first one is to improve the way the single market functions for construction products. And the second one, which is basically the big novelty in the CPR, in the new CPR, is how can we contribute to sustainability and the green transition in the construction ecosystem. In doing this, and in preparing the proposal for a new CPR, I think you will recognize that we have taken into consideration and recognize as well the relevance of the EOTA route, which has until now demonstrated the necessary flexibility to meet both legal and technical requirements. In fact, the application of more rigid legal and technical requirements to standards resulting from the James Elliott case that has traumatized some of us never stopped the citation of EADs in the official journal, although significant delays were sometimes unfortunately observed. I'll come back to that. It's important that in the future we preserve the ETA route, its bottom-up process that fosters innovation and flexibility. This is why, in the proposal, we've preserved the EOTA route from a so-called harmonized zone. Sebastian made reference to it already, and that I'm sure that will be the subject of discussions this afternoon and later on. It means that not having the status of harmonized technical specifications, EADs escape the somewhat rigid legal requirements which apply to mandatory harmonized technical specifications while taking into account member states' regulatory needs. At the same time, we confirmed that EADs give the same possibility as harmonized technical specifications to access the single market. In maintaining the DOP, the Declaration of Performance, and the CE marking based on the ETAs, and on preventing any barriers to trade by member states. The proposal also preserves confidentiality, which is crucial when we talk about new product development. And the role of the EOTA route will thus support the development of truly innovative products. Challenging and fair application of rules is also among the objectives of the proposal. Therefore, lighter legal and technical requirements will allow faster and we hope more accessible route to CE marking. Our aim here is to speed up the overall process of the development of European assessment documents. The Commission trusts the EOTA technical expertise, and we acknowledge the remarkable role EOTA plays when it comes to future developments of construction ecosystem. This is also reflected in the proposal for a new construction products regulation, which extends the Commission and to the Commission and groups of manufacturers the possibility to request EOTA to develop new European assessment documents. Going back to the current framework, which we still have to operate for a certain period of time until we've got a new CPR fully in force, and looking at it honestly, one has to admit that the current development procedures for European assessment documents have shown their value in terms of quality, but much less in terms of speed. And this is the reason why we agreed together, Commission and EOTA, and Sebastian made reference to it in his introductory speech. We've agreed to develop and implement a joint action plan to tackle what we call the backlog, so basically the more than 130 European assessment documents that still need to be cited in the official journal, and to put the EOTA route back to normal operation. The joint action plan has started being implemented since last month, and we aim at solving the backlog by next summer. Well, of course, we want to preserve the required quality of the documents. We, on the Commission side, we are fully engaged in this joint action plan, and I'm sure the EOTA colleagues are also fully engaged, and that both EOTA and the TABs will deploy the adequate resources, which undeniably will be necessary for the backlog to be eliminated. The challenge ahead of us is a big one, and it requires important efforts of all parties. But it's also an opportunity for technical assessment bodies to develop further their expertise and to support industry and the construction ecosystem in bringing innovative products to the market through specific harmonized technical specifications. Let me remind you that we will soon celebrate 30 years of single market. By the way, it's a big success. Generally speaking, I think it's recognized as a crown jewel of the EU. The internal market for construction products has been and continues to be a key asset for the digital and sustainable transformation of our societies. During the last 30 years, actually, the sector moved from different standards, technical approvals among EU member states to harmonized rules under a directive and then a regulation, the famous regulation that we aim at improving further now. Many good things have been achieved already with the Construction Products Directive, a system of harmonized technical specifications, as a grid system of attestation of conformity for each product family, a framework of notified bodies, and the CE marking of products. With the Construction Products Regulation, we focus on performance of construction products and related member states' regulatory needs. This being said, we need first to improve the functioning on a daily basis of the system allowing single market of construction products to flourish, and secondly, to take sustainability and digital dimensions into consideration. I do believe that in a spirit of cooperation, mutual understanding that we have shown over the years, and we also by defining the joint action plan that we're now implementing, we can look ahead together, identify further growth potential, render the single market even more resilient, and make the way for innovation in the construction product ecosystem. I wish you good debates. I unfortunately won't be able to stay with you all afternoon, but if you want to raise issues, suggest ideas, ask questions, my colleagues will stay with you for the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cozigou. Now, with the current Czech Council Presidency, it would be interesting to hear how we can ensure good cohesion under the new CPR. This talk will be given by Lenka Sedmidubská from the Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Czech Republic.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lenka Sedmidubská. I'm from Ministry of Industry and Trade. I work as a head of Building Materials Unit. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting to this conference. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. I have prepared a presentation on topic common technical language and building safety, how to ensure good cohesion under the new CPR. First of all, I would like to mention how we are connected with the CPR, the Ministry and Industry and Trade. The unit of building materials is involved into resulting from the European regulation for construction product, shortly CPR. Firstly, the Ministry has been designated to operate the product contact point for construction according to Article 10 of the CPR. Secondly, Ministry is the designating authority for the technical assessment body. There is a board for technical assessment body which was established by the Minister. Currently, we are 4 TAPs in the Czech Republic, whose activities are coordinated by Technical and Test Institute for Construction Prague. The Ministry has appointed Technical and Test Institute to fulfill the role of spoke body and coordinator for the Czech Republic in the European Organization for Technical Assessment. Second, the Technical and Test Institute also represents the Czech Republic in the structures of the EOTA. It means in the General Assembly and in the EOTA Technical Board. So, this year, on 30 March, the European Communication has been published a proposal for a new construction product regulation as part of the circular economic package. There were 2 main objectives on the new proposal. First, it is to achieve a well-functioning single market for construction products, and second, to implement the goals of ecological and digital transition according to the European Green Deal, Circular Economy Action Plan and Renovation Wave. In the new proposal, there are significant changes and extensions regarding, among others, the scope of the regulation and definitions. The proposal is currently being discussed at the level of the European Parliament and the Council of the EU. The problems affecting users of the current European regulation are mainly the blocked standardization process, outdated mandates for the European harmonization standards. Furthermore, the access to the EU market for manufacturers needs to be facilitated. Last but not least, the requirements of designers and architects need to be taken into account. In line with European standardization strategy, the Commission continues to work with Member States, industry and other relevant parties to revise outdated standardization requests. This is referred to as an acquis process. The aim is to make standards future-proof and reflect state of art. because a well-functioning and flexible harmonization system is crucial to protect European competitiveness. The Czech Republic developed a framework position on the new CPR before taking over the presidency. The position was drafted in May this year and was handed over to the French presidency. The framework position has been prepared by Czech Office for Technical Standardization, Metrology and State Testing. The Office for Technical Standardization is a government institution under the competence in the Ministry of Industry and Trade. The Office of Technical Standardization is responsible for coordinating the activities of the EU Council's Working Group G7 on the technical harmonization at national level. The Czech Republic generally supports the European Commission initiative aimed at addressing the shortcomings of the current CPR. The Czech Republic supports the preservation of the basic principles underlying the CPR. The new CPR proposal has been discussed within the G7 Working Party on the technical harmonization for construction products. During the Czech presidency, the proposal was split into several clusters according to topics, and all clusters have been discussed. The position of the member states were taken into account during the discussion, and the concept of the proposal was clarified. The position and information from the member states have been taken as a basis for drafting of a compromise text with changes in 3 clusters. It was first discussed on 22nd November, that's yesterday. In the context of the forthcoming legislation, I would like to mention the differences between the construction products and other products, and thus the need for a different approach to them. Construction products are a very different categories, small, large, and have very different purposes in building and civil engineering works. They are located in different climate conditions and have different culture and historical context. For this reason, building and civil engineering works should be in general regulated at national level. On the other hand, creating conditions for a well-functioning European single market for construction products is subject to union law. The common technical language in the CPR is different from the harmonization legislation. The common technical language approach means that the CPR does not define specific requirements for construction products, but only common methods for assessing the performance of construction products. It is important to use the terminology and methods given in the harmonized technical specification. As far as the safety of building is concerned, they are defined the current construction product regulation as basic building requirements. Union law can define the requirements for buildings. For this reason, the basic requirements for buildings are set out in general terms in Annex 1 of the current CPR. In the Czech Republic, they are implemented in the Czech Building Act. In the new CPR, the basic requirements for building are extended and elaborated in more details, taking into account the whole life cycle of building. I would like to mention the benefits that are important aspects. The benefits for the CPR for stakeholders in the construction sector. Harmonized rules for CE marking of construction products when placing construction products on the European market are of great benefit of all actors in construction process. It is a transparent communication tool for information transfer about the construction products and their intended use in terms of a declaration of performance. The benefits are, for example, for manufacturers, if the product is tested only once, according to European harmonized standards or European assessment document. National authorities may set performance requirements using the European harmonized standards of European assessment documents. Users of the construction products can define their performance requirements. Market surveillance is supported through a common information structure. It is important to ensure that reliable information is available to professionals, public authorities, and consumers. The benefit of the current CPR should be maintained by the new proposal of the construction product regulation. Together with tools such as digitalisation, building information management, they can help to create a safe, resilient and sustainable construction ecosystem. That means our climate commitments. And here is the contact to the Czech Presidency team who is responsible for the new proposal. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sedmidubská. And thank you for this overview. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to move into our first high-level panel discussion. Now, the CPR provides the framework for the free movement of construction products throughout the EU single market. Within this framework, the ETA offers a very much sought-after customable and agile route to CE marking for innovative and more sustainable, performative and smart products. Now, we are very happy that this route is to continue in the future. We would like to discuss this with stakeholders, how it should be best shaped to make it an efficient tool for the construction industry and construction administration in the future.
So, we have a couple of questions to discuss. I will ask the questions, but you are, of course, free to mention also other issues which seem to be important in the relation of these questions. We are in a very special situation globally and also in Europe. The markets are a little bit worried about the supply chain problematic. And the question I would like to ask you is, in which way also the CPR could help to overcome such problems we see now and perhaps in future sometimes again. So what could be the help of regulatories on the regulatory side to overcome these problems? Perhaps we can start with a lady.
Thank you very much for this relatively unexpected question. Nonetheless, well, supply chain issues can obviously be helped by a clear market access. So when I know that I have market access for my product, when my product is CE marked, I might have the incentive to try to overcome supply chain issues more than if that's not the case. But especially the EOTA route can be a very, very successful tool here, as it is there to foster innovation. Mm-hmm. So as it is there to give a rubber stamp to an innovative solution, which might also help overcome supply chain issues just by changing the way supply is needed.
So similar to the war, who is the father of everything, a crisis could foster innovation, if I understand you correctly.
Well, I don't have data on it personally, but it seems something that, yes, well, if I don't have something available, I have to make do with something else. Mm-hmm. And while what we all see on television every day in Ukraine, we don't call that the innovations we have now, but people are extremely inventive. They are extremely resourceful to overcome all the difficulties that they face in their daily lives. And I do believe that also applies to companies. I have been in Munich on a panel on the reconstruction of Ukraine, and there were companies who clearly said, we want to innovate in order to be able to reconstruct Ukraine as fast and as good as well as possible.
Yeah.
So yes, and that's not only for Ukraine but for all of us.
Mm-hmm. What is your approach, or what are your thoughts in this respect?
From our aspect, or from the aspect the Czech presidency, we have to stay neutral here. We have prepared the proposal accommodated to opinion of member states, and from our point of view, it's very important to preserve the basic principle of the CPR, to bring the stability to all economic or the actor in the construction sector. It's very important.
As a basis for innovation.
And bring in innovation in that.
Okay. You are smiling.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts about it?
Well, in this respect, of course, I would like to confirm, of course, your assessment of the situation. Yes, now in Europe, what is important, of course, the results, the negative, unfortunately, results of the war in the Ukraine. Also, we didn't fully recover after COVID, so we have not only broken distribution chains, but also shortage of materials. This is what the industry is now suffering. We are having a shortage of natural resources. Well, we have also problems with the sources of energy, and of course with the workforce. I'm talking from the perspective of the member states and of the place that this is just 300 kilometers. My house is just 300 kilometers from the border of the Ukraine, so it's very close. And in this respect, there is a lot of uncertainties for the industry. I think what is important is that the new CPR will provide a stable environment and an environment that does not add many administrative burdens. Mm-hmm. So to make the conditions for the industry stable, also in order to implement new innovation, because only when the industry has a good, stable environment, it can invent something new. And another point is the sustainability, because normally we think about the sustainability as about the issues like we are taking care about the climate change.
Mm-hmm. We will discuss about sustainability in a couple of minutes. So
okay, perfect.
We cover it later. I would be interested to hear your position to the question asked.
If I build on what Sebastian has been mentioning here and taken an industry position in this view in more practical terms, supply chain and CPR, how can we sort of bring this together and benefit? I think full transparency on what is required is the first thing. Whatever is vague, whatever is unclear will cause discussion, will cause delay, will cause lawyers to enter the scene and try to solve the problem. And this is costly and we are losing time. So full transparency is one thing. The second thing here is reliable execution and predictability. If we have deadlines until when we have to deliver certain documents, and if we have deadlines when we receive something, this should be predictable. Mm-hmm. When things getting unpredictable, and if I go back to my CEO and say, well, if you go for an EAD and ETA, it takes you maybe 6 months or maybe 3 years to receive this. He said, well, stop the investment. That's not interesting. Not because it lasts long, because it's unpredictable. I think the unpredictability is poison for any innovation, for any behavior and any creativity to make something better in that area. So that's something which should be understood by all stakeholders in that. If we work on this jointly, I think then it's possible to resolve one or the other detailed problem where we have different opinions, but predictability is a key dimension to my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I think that is a very important practical point you have mentioned now. And may I ask you also about your opinion?
Yes, thank you. So we, FIEC, we represent the contractors, the users. So we may have also a different approach rather, compared to product manufacturers. What we have seen both during the COVID crisis and afterwards with the war in Ukraine, also the fragility of our supply chains. And at the moment, I think there is an overall rethinking of these chains, also in the light of sustainability that was mentioned. And therefore, our view is that the problem is a little bit more complex than to be able to be solved just by the CPR, unfortunately. It will allow a bit more overall approach, which will touch different areas. This one is certainly one of them, because we will need to rethink the supply chains. Innovation is certainly a key part of it. It has been mentioned earlier. But again, I think the problem is a little bit more complex and will need not just the CPR, but other types of interventions as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That brings me to another point which has already mentioned. The key word has already been mentioned, that is innovation. Innovation of construction products are very important for the markets, especially in a situation as we have now when supply chains do not function any longer. So the question is, how could the EU or how could the Commission promote innovation in the area of construction products more than which has been done so far? I suppose we need to increase the speed of innovation, perhaps. So what are your thoughts on this question? Perhaps I can ask you again first.
Start with me again, okay? I haven't asked for that, so don't. Yeah. But I'm very happy to say something about it. I mean, very quickly, the EOTA route is a major point in innovation in construction products, and following that, then also in construction. It's needed also for your stakeholders. And that's actually one of the reasons it's been mentioned by Sebastian that he would like to have it differently. That's one of the reasons why we don't propose it to be part of the harmonized zone, because that would require way more taking into account member states' regulatory needs, working longer before actually European an ETA would be there, and that would actually we've really tried to shape it into the general route and the one for innovation. So that's what we think is the good way. I could go more into details if I had the time. The other is obviously we are working at the moment on our vision for construction by 2030. Called in Commission speak transition pathways. So what are all the things we need for up to state-of-the-art and innovative construction industry in the next 10 years? We will be full of concrete proposals. Watch the space at the beginning of next year. One of them will definitely also be development of skills, development of the workforce that we will need in the next years to fulfill our ambitions.
Do you have thoughts about this issue?
It's from my point of view, it's very important to continue to have the EOTA, ETA, ETA route for which is suitable to innovation construction products, and it's to keep it in this way. It's very important.
Okay, thank you very much. The president of innovation, what is he saying?
I think it's a very wide description, Rainer. Thank you very much. Anyway, what I was thinking about is that, well, we were referring to the current situation in the beginning, to the broken distribution chains. So I think it's very important that we make this influence of ETA route wider than only the European context. You know what I mean. So we should try to promote it globally, to promote it internationally. Of course, well, the ETAs and EADs, they represent, I think, a very, very stable and good state of the art, apart, of course, from the fact that they are innovation related. So there are the very good points also for the information that should be disseminated outside of the EU to the third countries. I think as EOTA we are ready to start some international projects to make EADs more international, also in order to spread this European innovation around the world.
Mm-hmm. That is a very interesting point, the international perspective, I suppose. Do you have thoughts about the, let's say, consequences and possibilities of internationalization, if I can say so, of such a European system like European technical assessments?
Maybe first I would like to comment on the questions before, because I think it's important to keep in mind a few things. First of all, in construction, it's not only product innovation, it's product and application. So those two things go together and define a solution for whatever we have. So a simple product innovation without application does not work at all. So you need to think, what is it good for to take this product at construction site? That's the first thing, and which gives two dimensions of innovation, the product dimension and the application dimension. Second, you cannot command, I think, innovation. That's not, there needs to be a benefit for innovation. A benefit for the user, meaning productivity, lower costs, better environmental classification or whatever. So if there's no benefit for what you do innovate, then it will not happen. So the benefit system for innovation should be stimulated. So I think we need to, let's say, reduce our use of construction materials in the next 20 years because it's not there for everything. Mm-hmm. So which means we need to innovate and benefit those people who invest into that direction, etc. So there needs to be a benefit system with respect to that. The construction industry itself, if you offer something which is using less time, which is faster, they will jump on it right away. If it's less costly, they will jump on it right away. But this is the company view on it. If you look from a society point of view, then a benefit system which drives the system towards what we want to achieve, greener, more digital, more what have you. Mm. And that's something, there should be indicators which gives you the security. If I invest into that, then somebody is going to win, and I also have some gain on that. That's the logic which should be reflected.
Yeah. And EOTA could be a facilitator on this way, yes. So, internationality.
Also, I would like to say a few words to the previous question.
But I will stick on international.
But I will not forget the one on international. Yeah. I think the element of the acceptance, first of all, by the client, the public, this is a very important element for the promotion of innovation. It was mentioned. But another one, we believe, is also something that can become an obstacle, which sometimes over-regulation can not allow this development of innovation. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the criticisms that we have highlighted in the revision of the CPR. If I take the example of 3D printing, is it really needed to be part of this revision? We don't believe so. Mm-hmm. So sometimes trying to do things too good lead us maybe in a different direction. Mm-hmm. And this is where we would like really to be careful. Over-regulation can be an obstacle. Mm-hmm. As regards internationalization, we see it from the perspective of our members, which are construction companies. The vast majority of them are very small ones, acting locally. And therefore, the international part is certainly important for some of the large groups, less for the vast majority of them. Mm-hmm. Having said this, I think that we have, at the moment, a big homework, first looking at our internal market, at the functioning of a CPR on the internal market. And I think from our perspective, the international aspect is maybe a little bit secondary. Let's first put some order and have something that works internally. And then it will certainly help also looking at the international dimension.
By the way, regarding 3D printing, there was a quite interesting discussion and also controversial discussion in the last meeting of the Council Working Group. But 3D printing is definitely an issue which is on the agenda.
Maybe you allow me to comment on
Yeah.
the international dimension from an industry point of view. I partly because I disagree partly because as a small companies, and I will share my presentation, one of the examples of it, need internationalization because they have specialized in certain sectors and they sell around the world. And based on this, also for small companies, this is an important dimension. And what is international? Is international all over Europe? Is this already international? If yes, then I would call it the minimum. And because we need to have that European market. Otherwise, we have no real good position in the future.
Yeah. I heard some voice. Somebody wanted to.
Mr. Doleschal.
Herr Doleschal, herzlich willkommen in unserem Meeting. Suddenly popping up from the screen. We are very happy that you can join us for some time. And I would like to ask you what news you can tell us about the activities in the European Parliament. And to be honest, I have one question to you which I find especially interesting, that is the draft of the new construction products regulation, which has 220 pages and 18 delegated acts. What are your thoughts about this? Sorry for mentioning it.
Yeah, first of all, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants. Thank you very much for the invitation and the possibility to give this keynote on the revision of the construction products regulation today. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you in person as the Parliament is in session in Strasbourg this week. Nevertheless, I'm glad to share today the priorities of my draft report in this way. Because one thing is clear, the construction products regulation plays an essential role in the implementation of key policy areas such as the single market, digitalisation and reconstruction. It is the engine and catalyst at the same times for competitiveness and innovation in Europe. Harmonized European standards are the backbone of our single market. I'm therefore happy that we submitted our draft report 2 weeks ago on 8th of November. And as many of you may have already seen, we have made a quite few changes to the Commission's original proposals, 293 amendments in 173 pages to be exact. First, an important priority I wanted to achieve with these amendments was to clarify the focus of the revision of the CPR. In the current CPR, it is clear. The focus of regulation was on the making available or placing on the market of construction products and how exactly this process should take place in order to prevent trade barriers and to ensure fair conditions of competition. In the new proposal of the Commission, a shift in the priorities and focus of the regulation can be observed. Suddenly, it is not only about the pure placing on the market of construction products, but also about the environmental impact of construction product and sustainability. With my amendment, I have once again shifted the focus back to the aspect of the internal market law. Secondly, I think it's important to reduce the complexity of regulation. The Commission's proposal is very complex and detailed. My amendments, therefore, aim to provide clarity, reduce bureaucratic and delayed provisions that the over-regularity. If there are established methods in the current CPR and there are no demands from stakeholders to change these methods, then I believe we must retain these methods. Third part, I also made some amendments regarding the scope of application. In the Commission's proposal, the scope of the regulation has been greatly expanded and now covers areas that go far beyond the placing on the market of construction products. The new scope covers practically all players in the constructions ecosystem. For example, manufacturers, importers, distributors, suppliers, architects, designers, and building constructors. I consider that this is problematic because it leads to administrative and financial burdens for both the economic actors who have to comply with the CPR and the users of the information provided through the CPR with no real added value. In my opinion, the revised construction product regulation should continue to apply the making available of construction products, but not to service contracts with contractors. Those actors in the value chain who merely integrate a construction product into a building, such as direct installers, should not be covered by the regulation. Fourth point. Furthermore, we need a clear separation of responsibilities in accordance with the subsidiarity principle. Member states must continue to be responsible for the safety of construction works, while the CPR on regulated the framework condition in the internal market with regard to construction products. An important point here is also public procurement. I consider it questionable if the EU, as investigated in the COM proposal, intervenes in the procurement of public contracts. Environmental requirements for public contracts should be voluntary to ensure that the bureaucratic burden is kept as low as possible for both the contracting authorities and the contractors. 5 point. Another one of my priorities is to establish short and long-term solution for the resolution of the current standard backlog. Currently, 444 standards of the European Standardization Committee are not enforced because the Commission is blocking their publication. I believe that I do not need to explain to you the heavy consequence and additional costs for the industry and manufacturers. Any companies are currently struggling with supply bottlenecks for construction materials, a shortage of skilled workers, inflations, and a generally changed economic situation due to the corona pandemic. Against this background in particular, we must give companies back planning and legal certainty. The Commission's proposed solution is that the standardization process can be bypassed through delegated acts. I do not believe that this approach taken by the Commission is the right approach. The Commission does not have the staff and expertise to replace the works of the standardization organization. In my opinion, the main objective must be to enable the technical expert in them to develop standards that can be cited in the official journal. I therefore propose to speed up the standardization process by introducing clear response deadlines and better communication methods between the Commission and them. In addition, I would like to introduce binding criteria for the quality of standards, so that it is clearly regulated which requirements then must fulfill to ensure that the drafted harmonized European standards are not subsequently rejected by the Commission on formal grounds. The introduction of harmonized technical standards via delegated acts should remain the exception and should only occur if this is really necessary in the interest of the internal market. In addition to the standard route, however, the EOTA alternative route will still play an important role in the future. We have often heard the view from stakeholders that EOTA route will be restricted in the new CPR, as European technical assessments documents are no longer to be harmonized specifications in the new proposal. However, this change has to do with the fact that the definition of harmonized technical specification has been changed. I want to assure you that the EOTA route will continue to play its important role in the future because it's more effective and faster than the standard route and therefore essential for innovation construct products. Last but not least, need a solution for the transition period. According to the proposal of the Commission, the new CPR could already enter in force in 2025. At the same time, the current CPR should remain in force until 2045. This means that the current and revised versions where two exist in parallel for 20 years. This would lead to confusions and uncertainty in the construction industry. We need clear guidance for this long transition period to tackle the urgent legal and technical challenges. In my report, I therefore propose a shorter transition period. The old CPR should expire no later than 10 years after the new CPR into force. In addition, I propose that the Commission draws up a publicly accessible working plan for the transition period. In this way, we will create planning certainty and transparency for economic operators. Ladies and gentlemen, I could go on, but I think one thing is clear. We need an ambitious revision of the construction product regulations that firstly creates a functioning and solid legal framework with effective, simple and harmonized rules for construction products, and secondly includes short-term and quick solutions that close the existing regulatory gaps. With my report, I have aimed to achieve this. Thank you very much for your attention. Unfortunately, I could not participate in the panel discussion or in the Q&A due to other responsibilities. However, my office will be happy to answer any question you may have in writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Dolleschal, for spending some time with us and giving us hope that the development of the construction products regulation is, with regard to the Parliament, in very good hands. And I wish you all the best in the discussions in the Parliament. And we trust in the words you have said to us now. Thank you very much. Yeah, are there immediate reaction to the speech of Mr. Dolleschal from the side of the panel?
Maybe just a very small word. We think that the proposal goes really into the right direction. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good start for the coming legislative process. Many of the points raised by Mr. Dolleschal were raised by us, and by the way, on this topic, we cooperate very closely with Construction Products Europe, with EBC, European Builders Federation. So it's the industry that is really together on this, and the messages pointed out and the way in which Mr. Dolleschal is going, I think it corresponds really to the concerns that we had put on the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. How much time do we still have? Who is Master of Procedures? Okay, perfect. So I can still ask you another question, and that is what we have already touched at when Mr. Dolleschal came in. That is the international perspective. What are your thoughts with regard to the international perspective of European technical assessments, which are a legal tool for the common market, but experiences showed us that there is also an international advantage in having a European technical assessment. So who would like to come in on this topic?
Maybe I should start, because in fact I will continue my speech that I started previously. As I said, as EOTA, we are ready to go more international. We already started this process, of course, via contacts, via gaining observers from the United States, but of course, this is only the beginning. So I think for the future, we need to analyze how is it possible to make information about ETA route disseminated in a better way, and in practical terms, how can we liaison with some third-party organizations to make the innovation and ETAs trusted tools in all global markets.
Mm-hmm. Are there thoughts from your side on this topic? The Commission?
Not particularly. We obviously support the aim of making European standards, including including the EOTA route, globally standards, not in the technical sense, in the legal sense, because that helps our industry, our European industry globally, and helps it to become more resilient.
So the discussion, given the remaining time, 10 minutes or something like this, only 8 minutes meanwhile, I would therefore lead the discussion now into the direction of sustainability. I think that is a topic we should in any case still discuss, because it's a very important topic for the future. And I could imagine that here also the EOTA could play a role as facilitator, at least at the beginning, as long as sustainability is not yet sufficiently covered by standardization. So, Mr. Wall, what are your thoughts about this?
First of all, as I started to speak in the beginning, sustainability seems to be one of the key issues also for the current crisis, because it's a tool for the manufacturers to optimize the production process and to optimize also the products in relation to the use of resources. And as EOTA, we are ready to do it. We are ready to implement it, because our project team 12 developed certain procedures how to implement BWR7, or so-called environmental sustainability, into EADs and ETAs. And of course, what we are waiting for is just the delegated act on the AVCP system for this. And I know that on Monday it was presented in one of the meetings, also in the current CPR. The Commission is working on it.
Would you like to add something to this?
I think from my point of view, it's also important that the ETA route is that it will be possible to show the sustainability parameters, for example, for the existing assessments, not to do it twice, for example, from the European, from the EPDs, environmental product declaration, and need this existing data from these assessments to the ETE.
Thank you very much. I look now on the other side.
Ben start for
maybe just a few words also. Certainly sustainability is a key element for construction. And here the request, it's more a request than a comment that I would like to make, is that we have already a lot of legislation dealing with sustainability from different perspectives. We have the ongoing revision of the PPD directive, energy performance of buildings. We have a legislation on waste. We have all the work done by the EU platform on sustainable finance. So we have a lot of things going on, and our request is simply not to overlay the layers of regulation, but try to build links and ensure a coherence between all these instruments.
Yeah.
We have seen this will certainly help also to simplify a lot the proposal that is on the table, and Mr. Dolezal mentioned it. One way is to look at what is existing and just to try to build the right links and connection and coherence between the different pieces of legislation. I think that's from a request from our side to the legislator, in particular in this phase of negotiation.
I totally agree with you, but still I have a problem with regard to sustainability, because when I think that we have 600 harmonized standards and European technical EADs, we would need to implement characteristics for sustainability into these 600 more technical specifications, if I can say so. So, do you have an idea how this could work? How long this might take? How much time it might take? Or whether there could be another approach with implementing the sustainability in a horizontal way instead of amending each and any harmonized standard and EAD?
The only way to do it is, I think, a cooperation between the legislator and the industry and the standardization bodies, maybe by setting a calendar with milestones and step-by-step approach instead of trying to do all at once, going sometimes in an area where at the moment we don't know exactly how things can apply or be used or whatever. So I think a step-by-step approach with very precise milestones, but again, I insist on the cooperation between the legislator, the industry, and the standardization bodies, of course. That's obvious.
Thank you very much. Has the Commission services plans how to integrate sustainability into the harmonized technical specifications?
Well, we are already working on it. No, we are already in the acquis process, but with view to the new CPR, we are already working on horizontal environmental requirements. So, which will then be integrated into the specific standards. But you all know that much better than I do, and can explain it much better than I can. So the idea is really to have a common layer of sustainability requirements adapted where the need is to specific products, and for us that's the way forward. We also, nobody has mentioned it here, we also believe that it's useful to have the environmental requirements in the CPR itself instead of having yet another legislative instrument applicable to construction products like the ESPR. The ESPR will partially be applicable, but our idea is that the CPR is the right tool to integrate sustainability requirements into construction products. So here the idea is to ensure coherence by keeping it in one legal instrument as much as possible.
And for the time being, would it be...
Excuse me, Mr. Mikulic, I'm really sorry, but we will have to close down.
Okay.
Otherwise, we don't have any time for our audience to ask any questions.
I suppose our discussion was too sustainable.
Well, actually, I am wondering if there are people in the audience who would like to ask some questions to our panelists. And we will come with a microphone. So there's a gentleman on the 4th row.
Yes.
Please stand up. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Lou from Glass for Europe, the trade association representing the glass manufacturer, flat glass. So I just had a question. There's let's say the ETAs, where the products that were covered by ETAs could benefit from the simplified procedures in the current CPR, and in the new CPR, this doesn't seem to be the case. And actually, Mr. Dolezal began to put amendments to reintroduce them. But yes, this is very beneficial for, especially for SMEs. So I was wondering, why were they removed? That's more for the Commission. And what does the panel think about this, let's say, change? And what is to be expected if it's not reintroduced in the next phase of the negotiations? Thank you.
I think that was a question to you.
Yes, although I'm unfortunately not sure that I understood the question. So if you may be able to rephrase it in a way that I'm sure that I understood, that would be helpful for me or yourself.
Perhaps you could sharpen your question a bit.
Yes, sorry if it was not clear enough. So the ETAs in the current CPR, the products that are covered by ETAs, can benefit from simplified procedures, especially when doing type testing or type calculation. But this is not anymore the case in the new text. If this is too technical, it's really fine. It could also be a question that can be written.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. I think we can discuss a little bit later on how is the real situation with the simplified procedures under the current CPR, and what is the real difference. So if you allow, because this is the question which is very technical and concerning very specific issues, we can try to discuss it a little bit later on, if you allow. I think this is a good idea.
Good. You want to say something on this? Okay.
Another question?
Yeah.
Yes, in the front row, the gentleman. Oh. No, okay. Just ask the gentleman over there. Yes, and then we will come to the front row to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Guido Sabatini from European Aluminium. Again, sorry, question for the Commission. It was just to understand and explain, since we are here all together, a little bit the rationale in the proposal of the European Commission to take out the EADs from the harmonized zone. Thank you.
Das ist nicht ganz richtig.
Yeah, well, I think we have already talked about it to a certain extent, which is the main issue is to keep it really for innovation, and that if it's part of the harmonized zone, loads of requirements of all the regulatory needs of member states have to be taken into account in preparing the European assessment documents. And that makes it much longer, much more cumbersome and much more difficult. So that you have actually an interest, and many people talked about flexibility and speed. If it's part of the harmonized zone, it won't. In general, it will be longer and it will be more complicated. The other point is the Commission has various possibilities to then make it easier for the EADs to actually factually become part of the harmonized zone. But the principle is really a clearer cut between standards in the harmonized zone and the EOTA route to really give it back what it was originally supposed to do anyway. But I know that we here in the room don't all agree on the choices that have been made in the proposal.
Thank you very much. Would you, Mr. Wall, would you like to comment on this from the perspective of EOTA?
From the perspective of EOTA, well, as I said in the beginning, we are thinking how to, if this is really possible, and if this is really feasible to make us harmonize technical specifications again, to make EADs harmonize technical specifications again. It would depend on the future shape of the harmonized zone, how the harmonized technical specifications will be defined. So this is really counting on the development of the draft. Mm-hmm. So it's really something for the future, but I really believe that this is something for the development.
What we can see in this discussion is that there are quite a lot of confusion with regard to this change in the construction products regulation. So I suppose that should also be discussed further in the Council Working Group. Yes.
And then we had another question in the front.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Matthias Springborn. I'm working for the German TAP DIBT, and for the time being I have the pleasure and the honor to chair the technical board of EOTA. I have a statement and a question. The statement is regarding sustainability. It's just information that we already had an EAD agreed with the Commission services containing BWR7, which has not been cited only based on the fact that we do not have yet a horizontal act for AVCP systems. So EOTA is already starting such kind of issues. The question which I have is addressing again the issue which we have just touched. I have very well in mind the James Elliott case, which was linked with a harmonized standard, and it was then the interpretation of the Commission services that, of course, this judgment has to be transferred also to EADs. Having this in mind, I would like to say that I appreciate very much the reasoning of the Commission services to exempt EADs from the harmonized zone, but I would like to ask you whether you are really sure that this concept would be possible to be maintained in the future, as EADs are foreseen to have the same consequences as harmonized technical specifications. So if there would be any legal development in the future based on a judgment, for instance, do you think that it would really be possible to maintain this approach, or would we not then face a situation where EADs would put in the same drawer like harmonized specifications and would face the same consequences and the same requirements? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm afraid that is a question to the Commission. On the fire.
Well, I do believe that works and that it's clear. But anyway, I mean, my father was a lawyer, and he always said, well, on the high seas, etc., etc. You all know that. So we cannot predict what if seas the European Court of Justice might make of it, but we are confident that the system that we propose is treaty-proof, because that's what it is. Whether it's the only one that's treaty-proof, we're also discussing whether it's necessary to integrate the James Elliott concept into the current proposal of the CPR, or whether that couldn't have been rethought, is also a point of discussion. We believe to be more future-proof in terms of the ECJ, the approach that we propose is the correct one. But that's also not necessarily shared by everybody. But this, yes, we consider that. We have discussed that also at length with our legal service, so that we are confident that that is standing up for the future.
So we must wait for further clarifications, and we will see how the things are going to develop. In any case, it remains to be interesting. I'm afraid.
I think we have time for one more question. Okay. That's it. One last.
So now, who is the happy woman or happy man who can ask the last question, please?
I don't know. Yes, it's on. No, well, I was waving, but I was already selected. You're going to love this. It's about the harmonized technical specifications. Now, as convener of the CPR working group in Construction Products Europe, I'm proud and happy to say that we have a common agreement within the construction products industry that we would like to see EADs and harmonized standards together being named, whatever you want to call it, harmonized technical specifications. For a simple reason, we do not want to have a two-class system for CE marking. So a CE marking should have the same meaning, at least to a certain extent. When you place a product on the market, it's been legally placed on the market. Whatever has been declared, the manufacturer is liable for what he's declaring. So in that sense, clear meaning. We understand, however, that you cannot apply the harmonized zone to EADs. That would kill innovation. So that's clear. Now, I'm coming to the question, and you'll love it because you just have to answer with yes or no.
That's a high risk.
Yeah. But now, our proposal, and that's the question here: would you consider maintaining the old definition whereby standards and EADs are harmonized technical specifications? However, then instead of saying, well, no, redefine the harmonized zone in saying, well, the harmonized zone is harmonized standards and delegated acts. Question mark. So yes or no? Would you consider?
So,
if I say yes, you will publicize everywhere that we will change. If I say no, you say I'm not open or the Commission is not open. I do think I've refrained from answering and take that back to discuss with my team.
Okay, that is.
If you want, we can vote if you want.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this panel discussion. To all our panelists, thank you for joining us. And I'm sure we will have a coffee break right now, that you can still bombard them with more questions, or maybe not. Anyway, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. And ladies and gentlemen who are watching us, we will be back at 3 p.m. for the second part of this conference. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for this second part of the Stakeholder Conference. And also a warm welcome back to our remote viewers. Now, the ETA route produces many success stories. In the second part, we would like to look and highlight some of them. The topics we will cover will include global markets and international cooperation, digitalisation, new ETA product areas, sustainability, and many more. First of all, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ulrich Bourgund, Construction Fixings Europe.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to open the afternoon session with the success story. That's a positive momentum, I think, and will stimulate maybe your thinking. And well, I would like to introduce you into the world of fasting technology. I'm going to present to you 1 or 2 slides on what is it all about. Then I will give you some insight what is driving us, why are we using those ETA documents. And then I will broaden up my view and share with you what does this document do on the international level. And finally, 1 slide which tells you our expectation and wishes with respect to the new CPR to arrive very soon. Now, when we talk about fasting technology, it means everything and nothing, sort of, but I would like to get the touch and feel of it for you. These are applications, these are typical things you will find in your environment. When you go home to your balcony, you will see the fastening technology there. You will see the crash barriers on the motorways. You see the fans in the tunnel when you drive through, which remove the air, etc. So you can easily see those applications, multiple of them. And fasting technology is only small, super tiny. But at the end of the day, if those elements fail, you have a problem. And since this is not given automatically, I share a few disastrous examples from this. Not too long ago, and you see the example from the Boston tunnel in 2006 and from the Sasako tunnel in Japan in 2012. All those accidents, both accidents, are related to fasting technology. And those tunnels have been in use for multiple years. So it's not just during construction, but it has been in multiple years. At the end of the day, without going to the details of it, the reason for that was incomplete technical qualification of anchors. Wrong products, incomplete. It does not happen in Europe because the ETA was far beyond with respect to that. The key question here is related to long-term behavior. And in the US and in Japan, this topic was not covered at all, but it was covered in the US. It was covered in the ETA. And finally, both countries, they have adopted the ETA regulations. They have adopted the EAD content and have introduced it to their technical requirements. So that's something to teach you that this is not automatically given. At the end of the day, it's a balance between safe solutions and economic solutions. And in order to sort this out, we have 2 elements. We do have the product qualification part. We mentioned this already. That's the ETA with all the technical details of performance, etc. But there's some other part, which is design, and which is already covered in the meantime, thanks to our efforts in the Eurocode 2 Part 4, which means in order to ensure the overall safety and economical balance for that sort of technology, the design of the product is in the Eurocode, the performance of the product is in the ETA. So which means only those two elements, they go together very well. They're depending from each other and they're referring to each other. And this building creates safety on construction site to avoid what you have seen on previous pictures. To tell you quickly what is it all about, the design. The ETA gives you the performance of one anchor. But this is not the reality. We have 10, 6 or more than that anchor at one position, and the design translates this into a real fastening of 10 anchors or something. So that's a technical detail about it. So that's important to understand. Design, which is the application, product, which is the performance. At the end of the day, those content does not drop from heaven, and the industry had invested for quite some years into that. And the result of those research has been made public because it was publicly funded research. And that's the reason why this is available for EADs and other documents. And I think that shows clearly the engagement of the industry, which is necessary, of course, to make it happen. So what are the specific examples here? And I've picked two of them. One specific one, which is a company named Keil. Keil is an abbreviation, and that's a great success story. So they are dealing with those panels, those facade panels, and you see a couple of examples there from an office building. Then there's a subway station where you have these facade panels which need to be fixed to the wall, and you have this fantastic museum there where all those, let's say, natural stone and other panels need to be fixed to the ground. So this technology is high tech. And this company has been working quite some time on it. Since ever, they have been on the ETA route, so to speak. They have been starting with CUAP, and they have starting with the ETAX 034, and they have came up with the first ETA in 2004. They have continuously invested after the change from CPD to CPR, and they came up with EADs. Now they are holding 33 ETAs and one American approval, which is content-wise, technical-wise, identical. Now, you see the numbers here, 600 manufacturers, product worldwide. This is a company of 30 people. Just keep in mind, 30 people. If you try to imagine these 30 people would undergo through a standardization exercise, no way. No way. But this is a very specific situation. It is a niche, so to speak, but they are very successful, and they are successful because of the possibility to go the ETA route. No other route is possible in that context, and it is an innovative product and successful. It's copied worldwide. You can see they sell in more than 80 countries, which is basically around the world. Now, the second example to share with you is a more generic one. And it stresses a point which I tried to bring up during the panel discussion. It's a product and the application. Both things need to be considered. Oh my, was it? Oh. In fastening technology, the chemical anchor has been undergo a dramatic change in the last 15 years. First of all, the companies, they have developed product and they have doubled the performance within 15 years, which is substantial in terms, if you think about productivity on construction sites. You just need to use half of the fastening today's if you double the performance. That's one dimension. But the other dimension is the innovation on the application. You see there the keywords are seismic, fatigue. What does it mean? So you can now fasten in seismic environment. You can fasten easily now in somewhere in Italy and Greece where we have substantial seismic activities. And fatigue is for the automotive industry with the robots. They need to be very, very precise in their location. If they move and if they change the automotive line, they will stop, which is very costly. Then, of course, you have those requirements with respect to lifetime, especially when we are discussing this sustainability topic. The Grand Paris project in France, they came back to the industry and said, well, we need to calculate this Grand Paris project for 100 years, so your product have to comply with requirements for 100 years. So far we did only for 50 years, because that's a standard in construction. So we need to develop something which serves the needs of the customer for 100 years. And so on. That's the sort of dynamics which you can easily see here within 10, 15 years has developed and broadened the application and the success of this product segment substantially. Now, here is a very complex slide, and I don't go to the details, but what you can read here is the more yellow and the more red the country is, the more held by companies coming from these countries. So basically, you see companies from China, from Australia, from Brazil, from the US, from Canada, and elsewhere. They are holding ETAs. Not all of them sell in Europe. Most of them, they don't sell them, but they use these to qualify their product because ETAs are recognized outside Europe also to vast extent. So, and if you see the numbers of ETAs in the respective countries for fastening technology, of course, Germany has the biggest one with 680. Then, of course, Italy is 300 and something. So this is a huge number of ETAs, which guarantees safety and economic solution in various ways. And I'm proud to say the European fastening industry is leading edge with respect to that, is leading in the world, and we are leading technology here. And if you go a little bit closer to some countries in the Asian part of this world, you see New Zealand, they copy-paste all the regulation, all the technical content into their local documents. The Australian standard refers explicitly to ETAs, to a document which is outside of their legislation. So this gives you something about the power, the importance these documents for fastening technology have reached in this world. And this gives, of course, a big advantage to the European industry, to various companies from various countries, small ones and big ones. And keep in mind, a company with 30 people selling product in 82 countries for application. This is not possible without ETA. Now, let me summarize quickly my sort of emotional presentation here. What is needed to have this? So we have two sides. Basically, it's a regulatory side, and of course, it's the responsibility and engagement from the industry side. And if I go quickly through those arrows here, so transparency, reliability in the regulatory is really hygiene. It's a must. There's no way out. Okay. And what I mentioned in the panel discussion already is the reliability on timing. If you promise something within months or days and you deliver in years, then this alternative route is dead, completely dead. And of course, level playing field, harmonization. Yes, we need harmonization, and I think it's possible. It's possible, and we have good examples for that, because we want to have same safety in Italy and France and Germany for respective application. And of course, agility. And the last 10 months have taught us that we even need more agility than we have thought before. Before, we were dominated by the discussion of the climate change. Now we have an additional dimension which, let's say, questions our current way to produce, to deliver. And so we need to be much more agile. If you design today something which lasts for more than 20 years until the year 2045 to be managed until then, just forget about it. This is, the world will change completely until that. We need to be more agile in our reactions. That's the reason why processes which are kept are vital to make this happen. Of course, there's responsibility from the industry. You need to invest in new products, invest in new, you need to take money. You need to consider about productivity, because the challenges on the construction industry is huge for the years to come. And the responsibility is huge inside Europe with respect to that. And of course, there need to be readiness for engagement and investment in harmonized technical requirements. If the industry is quiet, doesn't care at all, nothing is going to move. We need to have the customer for the regulation to engage and contribute. And only by this, I think you can create a momentum for technological leadership. Now, quick statement here. We need both. We need the harmonized European standards, and I think we need to have the ETA route. And I think that's very clear for various reasons. And it's important to understand what are the differences between these two routes. And I think that's really fundamental. You know? The ETA route is triggered by manufacturer currently. And the time for development is much faster. And it's voluntary, and that's also a good thing. It's voluntary. You don't have to. You can. You don't have to. You don't have to comply, but you can take opportunities and develop opportunities. And this energy, this creativity, I think is something vital, which belongs to the ETA route, and sometimes it's sort of overlooked. Now, what we like to see with the new legal framework of CPR? Of course, we need to maintain the dimension of safety and productivity. I think that's a must. There's no way to compromise. Harmonization in Europe, it's desperately needed. I guess if we don't harmonize our technical requirements, we have competitors, huge competitors around the world, which are much bigger than we are. And if we are not unified in a way of harmonization or our rules, sooner or later, our industry is damaged. Then, of course, we have a history of 20, 30 years with ETA and the respective development behind. And I think for all, let's say, first of all, I think continuity here needs to be maintained. I think the technical content cannot be eliminated by just calling them to be invalid after 3 years CPR in place. That's simply said unacceptable. What we would like to see also is a much better cooperation and communication between the EU administration and basically, for me, EOTA is part of that. So the industry is not interested in see, let's say, arguments between EOTA and the European Commission and other stakeholders there. We would like to see solutions. That's all. We don't care what is the solution. We have interest, but we would like to have momentum. We would like to have movement, solutions. Sometimes we like it and sometimes we don't like it. But doing nothing, maintaining a status quo, I think, is poison for industry. Stimulate innovation, I think we have been, let's say, mentioned this topic a little bit in the panel discussion. And finally, what I also mentioned, agility is something which will keep us alive, and agility will make us maintaining a leadership position in various dimensions. So I'm speaking for a number of companies. That's not my personal opinion here, and this is a view of small companies and bigger companies. And thank you very much for your attention.
Up next is Mr. Thomas Bruun from ETA-Danmark for his talk on issuing ETAs and developing EADs.
Thank you very much. I guess it's on. Yes, it's on. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak a little bit about the benefits and the added values of ETAs. I'm going to, in my presentation, to have a lot of focus on circular economy and construction and ETAs supporting sustainability and the ambitions to battle climate change. It's also lots of my esteemed colleagues in EOTA have issued a number of ETAs on various aspects and all of these things, but since it's ETA-Danmark, I will only be presenting ETAs issued by ETA-Danmark, so I'm sorry. But I will start off just by telling a little bit about who we are. ETA-Danmark has been making national approvals for the past 50 years in Denmark, and we've been a member of EOTA since the beginning. And we are notified to issue ETAs in all the technology areas, plus the one called Others. This is the tall building is where we have our office in Copenhagen Harbor, and actually it's a consequence also of a sustainable use of something existing. The two gray silos you see in the middle used to be Portland cement silos, and they were meant to be torn down, and instead they built an office building around it. We don't occupy the whole thing, just the top floors with the best view. We are a subsidiary of Danish Standards, but we operate completely as a separate private limited company. But before getting into the actual ETAs and give you some examples of what we've been working with, just a small introduction or recap of the ETA route to CE marking. First of all, we need to be sure that it's a product which is not already covered by a harmonized standard. a manufacturer, has been said before, it's a manufacturer-driven process, so the manufacturer always needs to contact either us or one of our colleagues in EOTA, that's okay as well, and chooses to work with that technical assessment body and makes a contract. The EAD is then developed within the framework of EOTA between the bodies that are designated in that particular area. And then the technical assessment body issues the ETA, and similarly to if the product were covered by a harmonized standard, the manufacturer draws up a declaration of performance and puts the CE marking on the product. So it's a well-defined process, and it's covered by the quality assurance program in EOTA and follows this strict rule. So what I started saying is that we need to identify first that the product is not already covered by a harmonized standard. There can be many reasons for that. We all talk about innovative products, but we also heard the example just before that products that undergo a fast technological development, either in the product itself or in the application of the product, is also really not fit for the standardization process simply due to the time that it takes. So the standardization process simply cannot keep up with the manufacturers. Also, innovative products, we talked about that. It's a very broad definition. Of course, application is very much part of it. But it could be new materials, it could be new solutions, it could be new ways of using existing product for new applications and so on. And it can also, the defining factor is in principle that there is no standard available at the present time. Maybe there will never be a standard for the product, but definitely the product itself is not mature for standardization. It can come to a point where it is. Also, if there is just one manufacturer of a product, then there is no basis for standardization in those cases. Also, building systems where you have a multiple number of components working together, like a partition kit or something like that, is not really eligible for standardization because there's too many factors to take into account that makes it quite difficult to standardize. So, as mentioned, the process itself is manufacturer-driven. EOTA is under the current CPR not allowed to initiate development of EADs itself, so everything is driven by manufacturers. It's also been mentioned before that it's a voluntary scheme, and this means that the ETA, applying for the ETA is voluntary, but it's necessary for the manufacturer to CE mark after the ETA has been issued. It also means that if we as EOTA members cannot continuously add value and present the added value of the ETA itself as a concept, then it all falls apart. So apart from the areas that were already spoken about of things that will not fit into the framework, if we cannot continuously as EOTA, as an organization, as members, promote and provide the added value of ETAs, then it does not make sense for manufacturers to apply for them. So we always need to be ahead of that and always need to be in front of the wishes of the manufacturers. So just a few sort of broad examples of ETAs. Load-bearing elements made out of glass fiber, reinforced polymers, shear connectors between timber structures and concrete slabs, floor gullies without water, and flat roof windows. So you can see it's a broad area, and more than, 11,000 ETAs have been issued so far, covering a huge variety of products. And I mentioned that I wanted to just emphasize a few of the areas where we are working, especially in the context of sustainability in the construction sector. Timber has become a very, very widely used product or material for load-bearing structures because both steel and concrete have different challenges when it comes to the sustainability of construction. So timber is, as a material, for load-bearing structures, of course, you need to connect the timber. And in most cases, the timber members are connected by steel products. We have an EAD for these. And funnily enough, I reflected over this, that when we started making this EAD, it actually came out of a guideline many, many years ago. And you will see the title is called nailing plates. But nobody really uses nails anymore. This is part of the whole idea of being able to design the structures for disassembly. So you rarely see anybody making nailing plates anymore. Everything is for connections where you either use screws or bolts so you can take it apart. This is also something that we see from the manufacturers that are asking for ETAs in this field, is that they have two aspects related to sustainability. One thing is they want to be able to design the structures with the ability to disassemble them after a period of time. Also, they are, as I said, made out of metal, so they are continuously optimizing on the material use. So they are trying to make them thin, they are trying to relocate the holes of the position so they still maintain a strong connection, but all in the sense of trying to limit the amount of steel that's needed. And the ETAs, based on this, will consider and assess the product performance, and they will give a reliable and transparent way of showing the performance of the connections with these products. And thereby we support the fact that the manufacturer's ambitions to support the circular economy and constructions can actually be done in a documented way and understood by everybody. So design for disassembly and reduction of material use is one of the aspects already now related to sustainability, which are covered by these ETAs. The way of expressing the performance can be done either by tables, and you see here examples of connectors which are used for timber structures with the specific feature that you can obtain hidden connections between the timber products. This is something which we see in many new structures, that there is an ambition to sort of that you don't show the steel. It's there, but it's hidden, so it looks like a homogeneous timber structure. Also, another way of expressing the performance similarly is by having formulas in the ETAs which allows for the designers to design the final connections with these products. So a lot of different options are available for expressing the performance in a way that can be used by the designers of the building. And one of the other things that we see now also for the connectors, in a large variety of the ETAs, they're starting to make connectors specifically aimed for CLT panels. And in this case, we also make ETAs for the panels themselves. And coincidentally, maybe it's politically correct, I don't know, but we made an ETA for a Ukrainian company. Fortunately, we did this, and the company is still in operation, everything considered. So we are happy to be able to also, in this small way, to support some of the Ukrainian manufacturers to keep their businesses running. In another area where it gets a little bit more strange, in a sense, is going away from timber, is companies are also trying to reduce their CO2 footprint by using other materials than cement. In this case, we have a manufacturer who are making cement concrete tiles, but without using cement. So the concrete tile, it actually, when you take it in your hands, it feels completely like a concrete tile, but it's made without cement. It's made in a process where microorganisms and enzymes are growing a calcium silicate base, which is then used to mold the tiles. Quite interesting product, no use of cement, and you still get a very durable tile out of it. And the point of the ETA is that you can compare the performances with ordinary tiles, because the test methods are similar to the ones that you use for the harmonized standard of the tiles. So you actually have a benchmark, and you can see that the performance of these tiles are similar and equivalent, and the durability is assessed as well for the performance of the tiles, so the manufacturer can benchmark and at the same time claim the limited CO2 emissions due to the fact that they're not using cement. Another area where we have that's made out of a scarce resource. Normally when you make acoustic insulation, it's made out of a mineral product, rock wool, glass wool, or something like this. We have a Danish manufacturer who's made an acoustic bat made out of seaweed. So they take the seaweed, they grow the seaweed, and they make it into, they harvest the seaweed, and they make it into a firm acoustic bat. Here it's the same principle. There are test methods which are applied for ordinary acoustic bats in accordance with the harmonized standard. We use the same methods, but because the product is not, the material is not covered by the harmonized standard, we make an ETA. And again, you can benchmark the performance against existing acoustic bats and giving the manufacturer an added value in this sense. And of course, seaweed, depending on how much plastic we put into the ocean, but seaweed is still one of the of the resources that we have plenty of still, of course. So it's one of the areas where we see a lot of development as well. And finally, this aspect was mentioned before as well, also when we talked about implementation of BWR7. We issued an ETA for reused masonry clay units. They are comparable also to new masonry clay units that has a harmonized standard, but they cannot be CE marked in accordance with the standard because the factory production control process for new clay units is completely different to what you can implement on a reused masonry clay unit. But what you get out of it is actually a performance which allows the designers to calculate the load-bearing capacity of a wall made by these masonry clay units, because you get the compression strength and other information from the ETA that can be used in accordance with Eurocode 2. So finally, where we see the ETAs and the aspect of sustainability, it's not something for the future. It's not something where we rely on the revision of the CPR. We already now make a lot of ETAs, all of the tabs in EOTA, for products which are undermining the ambitions to battle climate change and the ambitions to reduce the pull on natural resources. So already now we are making a huge effort in this aspect, and they are in going forward. And I think that's been expressed not only by me but by a lot of other people here today, that the ETAs are a very important tool in order to promote the use of innovative products in order to battle the climate change. And the fact that we have, through the construction products regulation, a transparent and reliable process gives it an added value for the manufacturers. So we believe that the ETA process is indeed, by its very nature, a crucial instrument in battling the climate change in the construction sector. At COP27 in Egypt just a few weeks ago, it was defined that the construction sector in Europe stands alone for 37% of the CO2 emissions in EU. So it's significant. It's a huge area, and something definitely there is an opportunity there. At the same time, McKinsey a couple of years ago made a report about the productivity and the readiness for digitalisation in the construction sector. The productivity in the construction sector over the past 40 years has increased by 1%, whereas most other sectors are increased by between 40 and 70%. So there is certainly an opportunity for doing more and doing better. The readiness for digitalisation in the construction sector was at more or less the same level as agriculture and fishing. So there is also an opportunity, and I'm sure that we'll be hearing more about this, for example, in relation to smart CE marking and all these things. So there is definitely an opportunity, and that being said, the McKinsey report is 2 years old. So with everything digital, things move fast, so maybe it's a different number today. But nevertheless, there is a lot of opportunities, and I think EOTA and the technical assessment bodies and the ETA route can benefit the manufacturers in this process and the regulators. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bruun. And now we are very pleased to connect with two online speakers. First of all, we have Kathie Morgan from ASTM International, and she will talk about the technical harmonization across borders. And on the other hand, afterwards, after 5 minutes, we will give the floor to Shahin Moinian from the International Code Council Evaluation Service on the international partnerships in technical assessments. Mrs. Morgan, the floor is yours.
Good day, everyone. I would like to thank the EOTA Executive Board and Sergio from the Secretariat staff for inviting ASTM International to take part in today's EOTA Stakeholder Conference. I'm very pleased that we have Sarah Gobi, our ASTM European representative, in person in the audience with you. And for me, it is an honor to be able to join you virtually and share a few perspectives from ASTM. I trust that many of you are familiar with ASTM International, but for those who aren't, simply we're a global developer of trusted standards and technical programs across a very wide range of industries and technologies. In addition to construction-related products and materials, our scope spans more than 90 different industry sectors, including sustainable fuels and energy, consumer product safety, robotics, automation, exotechnologies, and many more. We work together to reach technical consensus. Our voluntary members exchange expertise and knowledge, and they participate in a very direct and transparent process that's open to anyone, anywhere, with an interest in a standards development and its use. I'm very proud to share with you that the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, recently published a case study of ASTM International that documents our global reach and our global relevance and recognizes our membership structure and the open standards development process as being very well suited for many of today's emerging challenges. I will say that partnerships and collaborations are at our very core. We alone cannot accomplish our mission without the support of others. I'm very pleased to note that EOTA and their technical assessment bodies have helped many ASTM members gain technical approvals and find pathways to the European marketplace for their innovative and their green building products and materials. These non-standard construction products can then be used in projects to meet evolving demands and expectations throughout Europe and its partner countries. Whether it's Washington, D.C., Dubai, Singapore, or Brussels, the construction ecosystem is currently high on political, business, and international agendas. And we at ASTM have learned that close cooperation with industry, stakeholders, and society is really key in ensuring that the entire value chain can withstand today's economic challenges, as well as making green and digital transitions a reality for the construction sector. ASTM is on the cutting edge in a number of exciting areas, such as additive manufacturing, 3D printing, which offers multiple benefits for construction. The ability to incorporate low carbon and recycled materials into AM products means it could have a much lower environmental impact through reductions in wastage and a much smaller environmental footprint. Other advances are being made in the development of ASTM standards and test methods to support advanced materials to make buildings and infrastructure more resilient, smarter, and more energy efficient, and more sustainable. Earlier this year, I wanted to share that ASTM responded to a European Commission staff working document entitled Scenarios for a Transition Pathway for a More Resilient, Greener, and More Digital Construction Ecosystem. Our comments detail more specifics on relevant ASTM committee work in this area, as well as offering some policy and technical recommendations on how we believe the European standardization system can be more agile, can be more flexible, and better coordinate with international bodies that are contributing to the development of the sets of global standards that are needed by these complex supply chains. I know Sarah has provided these comments to Sergio, and I believe he plans to make them available to all of you. Sarah and I, as well as our colleague Jeff Grove, who some of you may know, would welcome additional conversations on how we can work together better. I know you have a full agenda of topics and numerous stakeholders to hear from today, and I'm going to be followed by our friend at ICC. So I'm going to close just by stating that ASTM International is very proud of our great relationship with EOTA. We are doing incredible work together, and we look forward to strengthening the collaboration and possibly allowing for more ASTM standards and test methods to help manufacturers get their technical approvals in the future, as well as considering other opportunities that we can collaborate on in areas like research and training. So congratulations to EOTA and to your technical assessment bodies for your important work that you're doing to reduce hurdles for manufacturers of non-standard products and for supporting innovation in the European construction market. ASTM International stands ready to support you in any way that we can. And thank you for the opportunity again to offer a few comments and join you virtually today. Thank you.
I decided to put my narration in a form of a slideshow because it probably is easier for everybody to see it since I'm virtual as well. Katie, it's good to see you, albeit virtually, and I see a number of friends at the conference today, not to mention Ulrich Bourgund, who's a very good friend. I take the opportunity to welcome the stakeholders to this conference. It's an honor to be here. My name is Shahin Moinian. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Conformity Assessment Group at ICC, which includes the ICC Evaluation Service and a few of our testing laboratories. As many of you know, ICCES has a fantastic relationship with the EOTA. We are the first observer member of this organization. We also have a licensing agreement with EOTA in place, which allows both parties across the Atlantic to exchange the intellectual properties between the EADs and also the acceptance criteria produced by ICC Evaluation Service. I just wanted to go over the revisions to the CPR and in a very brief format. Many of you have already mentioned those. Now, why was the EU CPR revised? Was basically to promote sustainability, assess the environmental performance, and improve surveillance. And some of the changes, I'm going to outline those as well. The wider regulatory scope, among other things, 3D printing, reuse of construction products, prefabrication, and modular. Also, additional design obligations, marking requirements, and increased scrutiny and accountability, including complaint portal, market surveillance through spot check, and a few other things that has been outlined. The benefits of technical cooperation, in my view, are the harmonization of the assessment documents. It's possible for the EADs and the US acceptance criteria to get harmonized for the benefit of not just the stakeholders on the approval side, by the manufacturers as well. It could reduce the testing cost for the manufacturer for both the ETAs as well as the ESRs in the United States. The potential cooperation in surveillance, meaning surveillance in the Americas, could be handled by U.S. technical assessment bodies and vice versa in Europe by the technical assessment bodies in Europe. Cooperation in technical content to improve assessment documents, and including harmonization of environmental documents. There are a few of those in place. And the result, in my view, is they're approved with ease of mind by code officials and authorities having jurisdiction. I put this slide on the list because I believe that the product approval with peace of mind, including promoting the environmental aspects, include a number of things. Accreditations obviously are very important. The codes and standards that are used, or in this case, the assessment documents or acceptance criteria, what the content is very important. the scheme for assessing documents, in my view, is very, very important. And also the personnel certification. These are the authorities having jurisdiction that actually approve products. How they are trained is very important. And last but certainly not least, the inspection and testing. Both aspects are important. And there are obviously some international standards for that, namely ISO 17025 for testing and 17020 for inspections. Some of the potential areas of cooperation with EOTA to address the needs of the manufacturers across the Atlantic are the following. Off-site construction is becoming bigger than ever. ICCES has some criteria for that for 3D printing, which is AC 509, module prefabricated housing, which is AC 543, CLT, which is AC 455, containers, which is AC 462, and there are a few other things. We have office kiosks and a few other things. We also have a criteria for low emission carbon cement for use in concrete, and that's certainly, as you know, the carbon emission through concrete is one of the largest contributor of CO2 to the environment. Cooperation in assessing the inclusion of EPDs into the acceptance criteria or the European EADs or a harmonized version of those, as well as joint complaint portal and market surveillance, which is one of the aspects of the revisions. I tried to be brief. I really appreciate the time you've given me, and I thank you for this. And it's really nice to see all the friends amongst the audience here. Thank you so much.
Now, next speaker is Alan Brinson from the European Fire Sprinkler Network.
Thank you very much. And I'm delighted and honoured to be given the chance to talk to you here. I represent a relatively small industry, about 4 or 5 billion euro turnover, which, you know, in the scheme of things is pretty small. Why do we use ETAs? It's a rather different perspective because our industry is very well regulated by the insurance sector. So we have a very different perspective. So this is what I'm going to cover. In case you don't know what a sprinkler is, you can see a very small photo of it here. Millions, tens of millions of these are installed every year across Europe. Unfortunately not in this building, but I think if it was new, it would have them. So the first reason that, and I've spoken to our members, our organization represents the industry across Europe. We have about 100 members, some very small, some household names of insurance companies, and they share a joint interest in using sprinklers more widely to get a step improvement in fire safety across Europe. Now, the first reason that they are interested in CE marking is because there is a widespread misunderstanding that the CE mark indicates a construction product is safe and fit for purpose. Now, for some things that may be true, but for a sprinkler it certainly isn't. Because if a building is going to, under a construction code, have sprinklers required in it, it will just say put in sprinklers. At the very most, it might refer to an installation standard, but it will stop there in the regulatory requirements. So for the ICC in the US, for example. And then the detail of the components is then sitting in the installation standard. And I've yet to meet a regulator who has any interest in how well a sprinkler should perform in a salt spray corrosion test, for example. They're not interested, they expect us to tell them. We're not allowed to. So it's unsurprising that this misunderstanding is out there when so many products, as we've just been seeing on a construction site, are CE marked. There is an expectation among some that everything should be CE marked. And in fact, in some fields, the CE mark does mean that a product is safe and suitable for purpose. So we see this, that we have specifications that call for all the construction products, all the components of a sprinkler system to be CE marked. And I've actually been in an event 7 or 8 years ago in the European Parliament when an MEP said she expected the same thing. And there was someone from the gravel, the aggregate industry, saying, well, what do you expect us to do? Our product's 1 million years old. Do you want a CE mark on every piece of gravel? You know, it's a tricky, complicated subject. And unfortunately, then a manufacturer has to explain to the customer that, yeah, for some products, we have a harmonized standard, so CE marking is not an option, it's compulsory. For others, we might have an EAD, so it's possible. And for others, we have neither, so it might take a while. And this is a very messy answer, and some specifiers don't believe the answer. And they say, well, we'll go and find somebody else then that maybe can provide the CE mark. So the second reason is that national governments, quite understandably, want their construction products to be safe and fit for purpose. It's a very laudable aim. And so some of them require a national mark. Of course, if you have the CE mark, they can't do that. But these countries do actually, at least for our industry, require a national mark. Some of them have issued big, long lists of products to which it applies. Others, it's a bit random and hits you out of the blue. And this may be the case even if they don't have a test protocol for how to decide if a product should have this national mark or a laboratory able to do the work. They just, nevertheless, they have this requirement. And so just as an example, in March 2020, the Spanish government suddenly said a particular type of sprinkler that's very, very widely used had to have the Spanish national mark. And so we had construction sites in Spain that were shut because of this, because we didn't have this mark. Every day I was getting emails and phone calls from people who normally have zero interest in sprinklers asking me if I was aware of this. I was. Ironically, the purpose of the CPR is to simplify cross-border trade and create the single market. So had we had a CE mark for this product, Spain would not have been able to do this. But at the time, we didn't have an EAD. Actually, now we do, but that's 2 years later. So why don't we take route one, harmonized standards? Well, for that, you have to have a standardization request before we can actually start work. We don't have one. The European Commission, many of you may know this, asked member states to prioritize which of the existing mandates they wanted worked on. That's the old name for the standardization requests. And it promised to work on the top 10. We came in number 11. So, close. No cigar. I understand that, at the very best, it will be 2024 before we do have a standardization request, so before we could even start to work on our products. So that's why we don't take route one. The only option actually is to go for the ETA. So our experience with this, and we're relatively new to this game, all the standards that we've written, for many of these products that we use, there are ISO standards. There are standards in the US, ANSI standards. You didn't have ANSI, but it's another organization that gets involved with this sort of thing. So we know how we write standards as nerds, as technical people, engineers, we write them. They don't comply with the CPR. So it took us a long time to get to learn how to do this, but we have had some success. So it's very small compared to some of these other presentations. We've had 2 EADs cited, and a third one is expected soon. So we're getting started, and there they are. So that's nice. So a number of manufacturers then are getting ETAs for these. I suppose 4, 5, 6 will do it for each of them. 3 very different products. So this was the first one. This was the product that got tripped up in Spain. A particular type of sprinkler. It's a very big one. Because in a warehouse you can have a very big fire very quickly, so you need a lot of water, so you have a big sprinkler. You have a much smaller one if it was in this room. Another one is a flexible sprinkler hose. So this is a product that's used to connect to the pipe hidden above a false ceiling and just bend it and move it to be in the middle of a ceiling tile so that the sprinkler is nicely in the middle of the tile rather than sort of on the edge of it. And then the third one, seismic sway bracing. So this is if you're in an area that may have an earthquake. A lot of fires are caused by earthquakes, so it's important that the sprinkler system works. And to make sure that it has the best chance of working, we need proper bracing so that the pipes and everything stay in position. So 3 different experiences. The first one, the ESFR sprinklers. This one is a very old story. Under the CPD, there was a QAP. And so some products had been CE marked. But then there was uncertainty if this could continue or not. And without really any clarification, nobody really quite knew where we stood. It's, you're very busy in the Commission. You're not going to be waiting for a question from 5 or 6 manufacturers about this. So it took us a long time to decide that actually no, it couldn't be used, and so we had to do something. And then meanwhile, although I've said that's one type of sprinkler, they come in a variety of sizes and shapes and hanging or pendant or upright. And so over the years, there have been new ones introduced. And so there was a need to develop the document. And one of the TABs, there's a member of EOTA, is here in this representative here in this room, developed an EAD. This is, to be clear, for a product that's been on the market for some time. So it's not a new product. It's just to allow us to sell it more easily across Europe. The EAD was based on the existing insurance approval. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. In fact, the intention was to minimize testing. I'm not sure, but maybe there was no testing required at all. Yes, there was. It was a paper exercise. There was very little need for retesting. Because don't forget, if you're a manufacturer and you're talking to your management within that company and you say, right, I need to spend 20,000, 30,000 euros on getting this certificate for CE marking, your boss is going to say, well, how much more of this product will we sell as a result of that? So it's, that's it. And how much money do we make out of this thing anyway? So that's the kind of consideration that any company would have, which is why they don't always do this for every product. If it's one you don't sell very much of, probably not going to do it. But I can say this one, it's an important product, so all the manufacturers are now going for ETAs. So that was a slow process, but it's done. Then the flexible sprinkler hose, there was no QAP, there was no history. And this took 2.5 years, much faster. So everybody's learning and it's getting better. The EAD again used an existing test protocol, and over 5 companies have applied for an ETA. One comment I did get is that it's unclear to those outside how EOTA decides, or the Commission decides, we don't know how this is done, which EADs to work on for citation. And in fact, this one overtook the one I mentioned previously. So although it was submitted to EOTA after the sprinkler one, it actually got cited first. We don't know why. And then the third one, seismic sway bracing. This is the first EAD that was drafted by that tab. So everybody's in the learning process here. Not just the tab, but I would say, frankly, the manufacturer, because they're not used to writing documents in the way that they have to be written to comply with the CPR. They don't follow the way you do it for other standards. Not only the manufacturer, I would say the European Commission was also on a learning curve, and EOTA itself. So we were all, nobody was really working optimally. The request was submitted in 2015. The EAD was submitted to EOTA 6 months ago, and I think as I showed you in a few slides back, it's still pending citation. We hope it'll be soon. We don't know. So some comments there. For manufacturers who wish to CE mark sprinkler components that are not covered by a harmonized standard, which is most of them, an ETA is the only option. And it does work, so we're having some positive experience here. I didn't mention this, but our harmonized standards are 20 years old. We haven't been able to get anything through the SEN system since then, for 20 years. This has been a learning process for the TAB and the European Commission, and I would say the manufacturer and EOTA as well. The process was initially very slow, but it's getting faster. The last one was 2.5 years. Who knows, maybe it can get down under 2 years, which would change the way this is seen. If you have to say it's going to be 2 or 3 years, then you might decide not to do it. If it's going to be 1 to 2 years, you might decide you will. The EADs stick closer to established protocols, test protocols, than harmonized standards. That's because it's just a small group of people involved in writing them, the manufacturer and the TAB. You don't have annoying other people like your competitors or insurers or fire brigades or consultants who all want to have an opinion. It's a small group And that also means it's faster to get on with it, to get the thing done. And of course, if you do change from an existing test protocol, you're going to have to do some rework. Just a couple of more things. It would be nice to, I think others have said this, to have a little more certainty on the timeline. The TAB and the manufacturers are in the dark. The TAB doesn't know, the manufacturers blame the TAB, so it causes friction. From the point of view of the TAB and the manufacturers, the rules seem to change all the time. We heard this earlier today. It seems there may be more changes. I didn't really understand that, but and I'm supposed to know more than our members about this, and I didn't understand it. However, it seems the communication is going better, so today is a good day for that, communicating to us all. So even though I didn't really understand, I understood something, and I can ask people in the coffee break. But overall, although we've had a difficult start, the system is working. It's enabling manufacturers to secure CE marks for their products, and without them giving me any details, they've said there will be more. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us. And let's move to our next topic. And this topic will be brought by Antonio Caballero González from the Construction Products Europe.
Very much. Yes. I'm ready, I'm done, at least according to the agenda. So I was expecting that we would be a bit late, so I hope that I've reduced the number of slides and I can catch up a little bit. So my presentation is about smart CE marking. And, I don't know, can we see it? Yes, so my presentation is about smart CE marking. And although I've been promoting smart CE marking now for a couple of years, it always starts with the question, what is it? Because there seems to be a different perception in the market, different expectations. The very simple answer is that CE marking is the thing that links the product with the declaration of performance, and therefore I think VX German member had a beautiful proposal to call it smart DOP. Whatever you call it, bottom line is we're trying to connect a physical product with a digital information somewhere that is provided somewhere in, of course, digital readable, but in a trustworthy way. It's certainly an easy way forward to explain it is to say, well, it's open source, it's a human readable format. Okay, that's all cool. That's all easy. A bit more provocative, I would say, it's today's digital construction product passport. Why provocative? Because we don't have digital product passports today, but we do have something that is called declaration of performance, which in my view, at least from the legal perspective, is exactly that. It contains all the information that legally is required. Now, of course, you can discuss, well, is the information complete? Should there be something more or not? Okay, but from a legal perspective, it certainly is that, and if we can digitalize the DOP, we can call it digital construction product passport. Now, it is not a database. Often, when we talk about smart CE marking, people start thinking in databases. No, it's not really, but of course, if you have a digital access, an easy access to digital information of that product, you can use that to aggregate information into some sort of a database, and the simplest database, from my perspective, is a digital building logbook. So that's where you can put things together. It is not BIM, but it is BIM compatible, it is beneficial, and this, I've said it all before. What is it as well? Well, it's the missing puzzle stone to the digital twin. And you may think, well, what a bright guy, he comes here with this, to the Automobile Museum with this picture. I have to admit it was by coincidence. But it basically reflects the difference. So in the automotive industry, at least as much as I know, being a civil engineer, so probably someone is from the automotive industry is going to smack me, but you do a planning, and then at the end of the planning process, you order your pieces, you manufacture your pieces according to the design. So then, therefore, it is true that you have a digital model, and it is the twin of the real model. That's true. In construction, it is not. if in construction we work the same way, you saw just the car, let's assume it costs, what, 50, 60, 70,000 euros? Considering the volume that it covers, well, an average dwelling, an average flat would have, what, 30, 40, 50 times the volume of that car? Would have, what, lifetime, what, 10, 15 times as long as the car? So if we would scale, you know, volume and time with money, we would end up in a situation where you can't pay the flat. So in construction, we have a different approach. We place products on the market, and with these products, buildings are being built. So not to stress the word standard, but in a sense, we provide standard products, and then contractors, designers choose from a variety of these products to build a product. Now, if they do this digitally, all fine, but what we see today, and I've attended interesting conferences of the Commission where there was a big question, is there a gap between the sustainability assessment and the real sustainability of the building? And I thought within 2 minutes, I'm done. The answer is yes. Because you do make a design, but what you don't do usually is control whether exactly all the products that have been used in that design have been used or better. So what is missing at the moment still also in digitalization and in making the real twin is that we have the digital model and then we have the real model, but somehow we need to feed the digital information of the products that have effectively been used into that digital design model, if you like. Because otherwise we only know what was supposed to be used, but maybe you had better products or you had different products or whatsoever. So that's why I said it's the missing puzzle stone. Why Smart CE? Why Smart CE? Well, because the information is needed everywhere today and in future, and not only where the CE mark is attached to the product. In some cases, the CE marking, even the name or the label, the logo, disappears once the product is installed. So we need to have that access. It needs to be available at design stage. It needs to be available along the supply chain, when you order, when you deliver. So all the steps that you have in a construction process, you need that information. And beyond, once you want, and talking again about digital twins, once you decide to modify the building, it would be nice to know whether the brick that you had foreseen to be installed was the one that is effectively installed, or maybe, because it wasn't available, you used one that had a higher compressive strength. It's interesting to know what the real compressive strength then is, to say, okay, now I'm going to refurbish, I'm going to make that hole in the wall, and does the rest still bear the capacity? And talking about the future, yes, I just recently saw a presentation of a company that currently is building up a business model by visiting buildings and making a catalog of the existing products in that building before tearing it down. Well, I can understand that for the building stock that exists, but for a future existing building stock, how stupid can that be? If we already have the information up front, why don't we document it in building logbooks? So that's to the future. But why also Smart CE? Because the information is very complex and very extensive. It can be very simple, but looking at the famous basic work requirements, and I only pick these, you can have products that touch maybe 1 or 2 or 3 aspects of them. The mold one is hygiene. I didn't find anything for health, and that would fit. You have structural, you have information that is related to structural information, hygiene, acoustics, thermal, sustainability, and it's not even, durability is not even mentioned here. And you can have all kind of detailed information. For some products, it can be straightforward. It can be 1 or 2 of these or other characteristics that they touch, but believe it or not, allow me to use the word stupid, but for a stupid brick, thick as a brick usually touches all of them. So I represent a sort of brick, calcium silicate units, and also mortars. For our products, for the bricks, for the calcium silicate products, a declaration of performance can be easily anything between 1 and 3 pages of information. Now, imagine a mason guy on site having to handle 3 pages of information and deciding whether this is the right product or not. So that's not going to work. We need to help implementing that. This here is a picture that you may have seen before. Unfortunately, I was expecting to see the artist here today, but he's not here. Oscar Nieto drew this, and it basically reflects the reasoning why on earth we need smart CE marking. So all that I said before was just to delay a bit and a bit of time. I could have shown you directly this picture. Yeah, well, okay, so what's then smart CE? Well, the backbone for it, and I should start saying that we used to talk about digital CE marking. So we started with a physical paper form under the CPD. When we moved towards the CPR, we said, hey, paper can be a problem and so on, always ensuring that the information is everywhere available. And we very much engaged in the discussion of providing the declaration of performance in an electronic format. At that time, the best we could achieve and the best that was possible was PDF, but PDF doesn't really help. So we continued the discussion on digital CE marking until a certain guy that painted the picture before said, hey, why don't we call it smart CE marking? Then that will catch. And indeed it did. So we changed the name. It was the same thing that we were talking about, but with smart CE marking, suddenly the thing started to fly. And we did some internal checks. We said, okay, what is needed? How can we structure the information? Which approach do we take? Open source, not open source? All these things. And the story was, we had an idea. We went for an XML format and said, okay, but before we go public, let's do some tests. Let's do some feasibility tests. We checked on a couple of product standards. We checked also on at least one EAD, and I'm sure maybe 2 or 3 as well. Bottom line is, when we felt confident, okay, we're good to go. We said, okay, let's put it all on a piece of paper, and went to the usual way. We went to Sun and said, hey, we need a document that can be cited, and we ended up having this Smart CE Send workshop agreement. And this is, until today, now the backbone. It basically describes how the information needs to be structured. It doesn't exactly describe what needs to be done. And of course, when you see a picture like that, and I've shown this in a standardization committee, this is a guarantee to lose your committee members. Normally, a committee member is a technical expert. If you show them, oh, smart CE marking, this is the way to do it. Yep, thank you very much. Where is the exit? And this is just the diagram for of course, the legal information, and you can show that also for the technical information. Yes, this is geek information. So if you show this to a programmer, he will say, oh, I love you, thank you very much, I know how to do it. If you, however, need to specify the rules for a given product, don't show this to your experts. So instead of doing that, you can explain them, okay, so what is it that we need to do as a committee? Well, looking at a standard, so what does it mean? You need to take your EN, in this case, so you take your standard, you take the tables a day, you scrutinize the information that is in there. Oh, that's a nice sign. It's an arrow, so it shows to the right. You scrutinize the information. Basically you collect all the information, you identify what is an essential characteristics and what kind of information is contained within there. Like, for example, take again the example of a brake. You have a compressive strength, and there is one little tiny information that says orientation. So are you pressing this way, or the other way? So these are things that you need to collect from the information that you have in the standard with the support of that tables a day, and you put it in a nice table in a structured form. From there on, again, this is an arrow. You result in an XML document with the help of some software geek that can do that. So you don't need to do this in the committee itself. All you need to do is you need to structure the information there. Now, nice that I'm talking about standards, but here I think I'm on an EOTA event, so let's talk about ETAs and EADs. And there, the approach is basically, well, hang on, I'm not done yet. I was jumping already. So, structuring the information. So, whoop, go back. so structuring the information. When you look into the SEN workshop agreement, you'll find a lot of text and a lot of stuff that is explained, which, as I said before, a software geek can easily understand. You'll also find the diagram that I showed you. And more importantly, you will find this kind of structure. And it says, look, the way, and I don't know, can I point with this thingy? Probably not. You have an essential characteristic. So if you look at table ZA, there are essential characteristics. When you go to the clauses that are referred to, you'll find, look, there is a thermal properties, an essential characteristics. There is information saying, thermal conductivity, there's something about density, this and that. So you start collecting the information. And what basically the SEN workshop agreement says is, look, you've got to sort it in a clear order. I call this the Matushka approach. So you have a level, which is the essential characteristic. Within the essential characteristic, you may find different properties. If you go a level below, sometimes you need a second level of properties. But it's just taking the information and putting them in the right boxes, in the right order. Nothing more, nothing less. When you do that, you end up in an Excel table like this. This is for mortars, and you see here water permeability as an essential characteristic. You see that the property level 1 now is called water permeability on a relevant substrate, and then you see that it's repeated. So because the same water can be applied on a concrete, on a masonry wall or whatsoever, so you have the possibility to declare the same property a couple of times depending on the substrate. So this is just to explain what the work of the technical committee is. And I can tell you they're capable of doing this because they have invented the standard, so they should be able to put the information in this form. Now, I think now we come to the promised, what is it when we move to an ETA or an EAD? Well, sorry, yes. When we move to an EAD, it's the same. No, it's not the same. I have to admit that when I first tried to do it, I was looking for table ZA and an EAD and didn't find it, right? Voila. So there is the big difference. You have an EAD, you have the SEN workshop agreement, and you have essential characteristics, right? The main thing that you need to exchange is the table ZA by the ETA, or, as usual, by several ETAs. So you need to collect the information that are there, and then you can do exactly the same exercise. Put the information in a table, and then you can create that structure. I see there are some questions, but let's not go into the details here. But the way forward is very much a simple one, is reading technical information and putting it in an Excel table. Come on, how difficult can that be for an engineer, right? You need some guidance, that is all okay, that's not a problem. So it is doable, and as I said, again, the beautiful arrow. And as I said before, we tested it. We tested it with anchors, and I am now very happy to hear that, I think 3rd of December or something like that, there will be a first meeting of a working group to really not only take the experience that we made and say, oh, beautiful, thank you very much, we'll rubber stamp it. Now in EOTA, a working group is coming together to really look at it and to start drafting the first product data template for these anchors. And I think this is the approach forward. And with that, I'm almost at the end. I have one little nice picture at the end. I hope you like it, and I hope I'm now right there. Oh, sorry. And of course, yes, so we can pick that information from the EAD and put it in a table, whether it is the characteristic load or the displacement, that doesn't matter. Now, with this, I'm really coming to an end. And the end is this picture. And this picture, for me, symbolizes a lot of things. It's the together thing. So it's the offer that we have as an industry to support also EOTA on the way to the digitalization. I mean, you have manufacturers and you have associations behind the manufacturers that are happy to support EOTA on digitalizing existing EADs. CPE, so Construction Products Europe, is happy to help you from the ground. I mean, we cannot do the work for you, but since we have had some experience, since we have done the exercise a couple of times with other standards, of course, we can be your sounding board, your question board, or whatever. But more importantly, digitalization of construction products, it's not standardized products or ETA products. It's not the one or the other. It's either both or nothing. We will not achieve a digital construction environment if only one goes or the other goes, or if within one group only a few go. It's a way forward. So we need to push this forward together. And just imagine, I was talking about 3 to 4 pages information for a brick already there, and I haven't yet mentioned how many pages that would be if we're looking at emissions into indoor air, emissions into soil and groundwater, and sustainability performances. We may need to go back to papyrus rolls to print the information, so let's all go digital. Thank you very much. And no, I couldn't keep my promise.
I would like to invite Mrs. Morfini from the Construction Technologies Institute. She will be the moderator. And of course, we have our other panelists, Mr. Thomas Bruun, Mr. Alan Brinson, and Mr. Guido Sabatini.
So I prepared a lot of questions at the beginning, but minutes after minutes, I understood that all the subjects that I was interested in were already addressed at a very high level, according to my opinion. So I think it is no more useful to discuss again of sustainability, of innovation, of all the themes that I prepare for speaking about the future. So considering also that time is running and that it could be more nice, more useful to give room to the question and answer session, I decided to reduce the questions to only one, like if it is a conclusion or, I saw the battles, I say, a message in the battle. So what I'm asking to the panelists is, which is your key, according to, in your opinion, the key challenge for the future of EOTA? If you should put a message in a battle and saying what you are hoping for the development of the future EOTA, what would you say? Because I make just an example. Thomas Bruun gave us very interesting examples, according to me, of sustainability. Sustainability, he demonstrated that sustainability is a present. Is not only the future, it's also the present, and this is very interesting. So that's why I said, okay, we have already talked about innovation, we have already talked about digitalization. Thank you very much for your very interesting contribution. So now my simple question is, which is your opinion about that? Would you like to start, Guido?
I can pick it up. Thank you for the question, and thank you also for giving me a little bit of time to think about the reply, because it was unexpected. But I would say that it's very important that EOTA will reflect what's happening on the market, on the construction products value chain, how products are manufactured. It was very nice, the video that, Sebastian, you have presented at the beginning. I was taking a look, and there were quite few examples of aluminium products in there. I work for European Aluminium Trade Association, dealing with aluminium in Europe, and of course also in buildings. And over there, if I'm not mistaken, I could have seen some products that are covered by ETAG still, but hopefully very soon EADs. For example, structural glazing. Over there, we have a very specific construction manufacturing environment. There are not only manufacturers that are asking for an ETA. Over there are other players along the value chain, and for example, some of them are our members that are so-called system providers. So those that provide the system, meaning the frame, the aluminum frame that surrounds the glass that is used very often in those high-rise buildings. And that's something that, for example, is now missing in the current construction products regulation. They are not really included among the key stakeholders and defined in the construction products regulation, while they do have a place in some of the provisions like simplified procedures mentioned in the proposed Article 64. So I think that EOTA can play a very big role in understanding and hearing what's happening on the market and provide solutions that are applicable for realities that do not always simply apply to the very basic scheme, manufacturer, notified body, or technical assessment body, sorry, that we normally have. Of course, these should be coupled by regulatory framework. So that's why we are lobbying towards the Commission institutions so that the very valuable proposal that is now on the table can be further improved.
Thank you, Guido.
Yeah, I'll say something, yeah. So as I explained when I talked earlier, we're starting from a very different place. But one of the main reasons that our members are interested in the EOTA approach to get to be able to CE mark their products is so that they can sell them across the EU without having a block put in their way in the form of national requirements. So for us, it would be very important that that continues to be the status that these products enjoy, even though they've got CE marking through the EOTA process. So if I did understand the conversation earlier, that was perhaps in doubt. So that I know it's not within the gift of EOTA to fix it, but I think there are people from the Commission here. If they could take that message away, please, that would be very helpful. The one for EOTA for us is it's just a question of speed, and I appreciate EOTA isn't the only stakeholder or party involved in determining how long this takes. But if everybody can work a bit faster so that you can turn it around in, let's say, 18 months, that gives a different perspective for a manufacturer on whether to go for this or not.
Thank you. Thomas?
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's indeed an interesting question, and looking from the point of view of a technical assessment body delivering the ETAs, I think our primary goal would be that the ETAs maintains that they are voluntary, but we need to ensure that we continuously provide the manufacturers with the added value that the ETAs give. So we need to ensure in the CPR revision that the ability to provide added value in the ETAs is maintained. And for example, when it comes to the whole discussion we had earlier in the day about the status of harmonization, I think the key issue for me as a technical assessment body is to ensure that when an ETA is issued and the manufacturer CE marks, that a member state cannot, if the EAD is not a harmonized or does not have a status as a harmonized technical specification, cannot impose additional requirements or supplementary requirements to the manufacturer. So my concern in connection with this whole question about whether or not the EADs are harmonized or not is related to the fact that we lose a tremendous value of the ETAs if the revision of the CPR will allow member states to impose additional requirements, for example, having a fire characteristic test covered by an ETA, and the member state is allowed to say, hey, that's all fine, but we have a different method. So I'm concerned that this would be an possible implication of the lack of the status of the EADs. And that would cause the ETAs themselves to lose value for the manufacturers. So I think this is very important. And I think also we were talking about sustainability. One of the issues is also to create a level playing field. For example, how and what is the basis for implementing, for example, EPDs into the ETAs? There's a standard 15804 for creating EPDs, but there's also a Commission program called PEF. So which one is going to be used? I think there needs to be a decision on which way to go, because otherwise you will have different levels of the EPDs and the ETAs and then not create clarity and transparency of what is what is actually stated in the ETA. So we need to have some of these really, really crucial elements. We need to have an agreement on which is the basis for example, including EADs into the ETAs.
Yes, Mrs. Katarina Knapton-Wirlich promised that there will be a clarification on the technical details on how addressing sustainability. So we obviously wait for this clarification, crossing fingers in the meantime.
We could answer the question. I think. Let's be a bit provocative here today. We could answer the question.
Yes, please.
Because let's start with the fact. I think that there is no reasoning to have a standard as such. There isn't reasoning to have an EAD as such unless it helps the manufacturers place products on the market. So it's about solving solutions. We heard about innovation today, and at a certain point I was thinking the innovation motor is EOTA, but I guess you don't believe that. The innovation comes from a concrete challenge that you have, a technical problem, a technical challenge, and from companies that dare take that challenge and provide a solution to that. And we need to have a route to deliver on what is necessary to put products on the market. And I'm a great supporter of standards. Fine. I'm talking about bricks. They've been around for a couple of thousand years. It's difficult to talk about innovative bricks in this perspective. There are some innovations, but okay. But I'm also a great supporter of the idea that no matter how many standards we have, we will always need another route for innovative products. Products that I have not even dreamt of, products that I may have seen but have developed on. This your calcium silicate thingy was quite interesting.
Yes.
Never thought about that, but this is of course a reason to have that. But besides that, we don't need EADs as such, we don't need standards as such, unless there is a reasoning for that. And using that same logic and argument, you could say, we're not, I'm sorry to say so, but we're not placing products on the market as manufacturers. I'm not a manufacturer to represent some. We're not placing them on the market just to satisfy legislation. That's not the reason. We do it because we need to provide a solution, and the characteristics that we provide are there to answer questions. And what we see is that throughout Europe, at least, the standard assessment method is for sustainable buildings. And come on, the product that has to be sustainable in the end is the building, is based on 15804. So I really don't get it why we keep on discussing about which method there is. We have educated engineers out there, we have educated architects out there to do a sustainability assessment based on EPD data, and we're still discussing that maybe we want to provide them with something else that they are not using. That's not providing solutions. I'm sorry.
If you don't mind, I'd like to muddy the waters on that subject. So as I mentioned earlier, my interest is fire sprinkler systems, and we're always baffled by this idea of sustainability. We say, look, our product stops the building burning down, so surely that's a positive effect. And there was a case of a building in the UK. It was a new university block, science block. It had a BREEAM rating, top rating, excellent, outstanding, whatever it was. It burnt to the ground. It was rebuilt, and it was given another award, rebuilt the same way. All the CO2 emitted from the first one that was burnt down was completely ignored. So there is a temptation to consider the steady state here, because something like I've just described is in the too difficult box. Another thing is just how you build things. So again, with our products, you would have steel pipes to provide the water, bring the water to the sprinklers. You've made things worse. You put a load of steel into the building with embodied carbon, and you only really get any benefit if there is a fire, which a percentage of the time there is, and then it does its job. However, if you're thinking about the circular economy, depending on how you put the steel in the building, if you embed it in the concrete, it's a bit more difficult to get it out. So is that circular thinking, or is it not? So we're sort of wrestling with this sort of stuff, which, it sort of sits to the side of all the product. It's the same product, but how you use it can have an impact on how environmentally sustainable it is. Just to make things more confusing.
Okay. No. Very interesting. Yes, thank you. I have an idea. If some of my colleague of EOTA wants also to present a message in the battle for the future of EOTA, I would be glad to hear also from them. For instance,
Sure.
Matthias Springborn, would you like to provide us with your message in the battle for the future?
Had in mind to comment on something which I came across in the presentations, which might fit into what you are asking me to contribute. We have seen in the presentation of Mr. Bourgund that transparency is a key issue from his point of view in the development of our documents. On the other hand, we had in the presentation of Mr. Brinson a description of the state of the art, which is perceived by some stakeholders for more or less good reasons, which is perceived as an intransparent process. So I think from the point of view of EOTA, and I hope that also my EOTA colleagues would support this opinion, it is finally not up to EOTA to comment on this, but it would be a decision on a political level. What is asked for by the manufacturers? Do manufacturers want to maintain their confidentiality, the fact that they are a step in advance with regard to in comparison to their competitors? So should such procedures be dealt with confidential as it is done for the time being? Or should we do this on a more open level, leading to the fact that manufacturers, the specific single manufacturers applying for an ETA, would not benefit from such kind of confidentiality? So from my perspective, we are open for both solutions, and it would be up to the manufacturers, the industry, and discussions with the Commission services to find an appropriate balance.
Maybe I can respond to that, because the confidentiality and the cooperation and so on, this has always been a continuous discussion in Construction Products Europe. And let me put my view of that. Now, certainly we need a certain kind of confidentiality, but going back to the last picture that I showed, I would very much appreciate if CEN and EOTA worked on providing solutions to manufacturers, in the sense that we should try to have to avoid conflicts that we have had in the past between the CEN and the EOTA route, by improving the communication between both sides to avoid overlaps, or that something is happening that is in conflict to the other. So there should not be a competition between EOTA and CEN in the sense who's the king in the town. It should be a competence about providing solutions to manufacturers. And in that respect, yes, confidentiality is crucial. I think there is no doubt about it. Otherwise, the manufacturer would not knock on the door and ask for an ETA. So we need to maintain that. On the other hand, we need to somehow find a way, to sort out some of the problems that we've had in the past where we had overlaps. But I'm confident that can be ruled out.
I have Thomas, and then if I see well, Mr. Bourgund. Please, Thomas.
Thank you so much. No, I completely agree that cooperation is certainly the way forward here. Also, as I mentioned in my presentation, ETA-Danmark is owned by Danish standards, so not but it certainly emphasizes the need for such a cooperation. So I'm completely with you on that. And as to the aspect that is mentioned, I think actually the revision of the CPR opens up for the opportunity for a manufacturer's organization to ask for EADs to be developed, which is actually could, to a certain extent, promote this approach where it is not necessarily single manufacturer driven, but it could be a manufacturer organization that comes to EOTA and asks for something which evidently would be open, but we do need to maintain the possibility for maintaining confidentiality. But that's one of the things in the revision of the CPR that I think is a benefit that could actually promote this cross organization development of EADs, and even bringing standardization into it to make sure that there is a level playing field.
Thank you. Mr. Bourgund, is a message in the bottle or a question?
No, it's just let's say, amendment to what Thomas was saying. And I think the question, is a good one for an open debate. That's the reason why, Matthias, I like the question per se. But my view on this is the following. We need to balance out confidentiality and transparency. But transparency on the process does not mean transparency on the content. So these are two different things. And the transparency on the process is a must. And then, of course, what Thomas mentioned, let's get industry sectors together if they feel like, if they want, and develop something jointly. That's fine. That's a good thing, which brings the industry forward. But I think separation between transparency on specific content and transparency on process are two different things we need to manage. There's no perfect solution for that, but I think that's the way we should think. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there... No, please, Guido.
To add on that, the transparency of the process, definitely it's something, it's going to be very brief, but that definitely would improve also the timely service of technical assessment bodies towards manufacturers. We have seen in the past some delays or, let's say, unclear procedures that as association we try to smoothen and to solve in order to shrink as much as possible the time for the issuance of European technical assessments. That doesn't always happen, but definitely transparency in that sense could. It's a must that EOTA keeps in mind to ensure the future success.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
One of the audience who is watching us.
So we are transforming this panel into the question and answer.
Yes, we are.
Any more message in the bottle from other people before starting with the questions?
Okay, we have a question. How will the cybersecurity of Smart CE marking be protected so it cannot be changed? Who is responsible for the Smart CE, the TAB or CPE?
Antonio, are you going to?
Well, responsible for Smart CE marking is certainly not CPE. It's not even CEN. It's not even the TAB. What CEN and TABs, and that's EOTA, can basically do is provide the data template. Now, responsible for the declaration of performance is the manufacturer, and so consequently, if he's providing this, or she is providing this, that information digitally, it's also his or her responsibility. Data security, cyber security, all interesting discussions that we had. Certainly, we need to ensure that the information is maintained. It's not changed. There are new technologies how to do it. But let's not lift the level of a declaration of performance above the security of the euro notes. If you can forge a euro note, I'm pretty sure that we have to draw a line somewhere. There has to be clear criteria how to protect the data. There has to be clear requirements not to modify it. But you can always, the same applies also to a paper copy. So yeah, I hope that with that the question is satisfied and answered.
Would you like to add something?
Yeah, I've got something. I don't know the numbers, but I have heard from a couple of TABs that the business model didn't stack up to produce an EAD. In other words, they reckoned it would cost them to produce an EAD would not be covered by the money from the Commission. So, of course, if a manufacturer asks a TAB for an ETA, the TAB doesn't have to say yes. It can say, sorry, we have other priorities. So I just wondered if any of the TABs, or perhaps one for you, how do you feel about that issue? Is that something that needs to be thought about?
I think it depends all the tabs are to a very large extent organized completely differently. So the way that they are organized are different. Now, we are a private limited company. So we work from a sort of a business perspective, meaning that we don't really like projects where we don't make money or at least cover our costs. But we also recognize the fact that the grant we get from different sources to develop EADs, primarily from the European Commission, is a support to the EAD. It does not fully one-to-one cover the cost. So, I mean, this is part of our business model, but of course we need to take that into account when we do our planning. I have to say that this, if we are rejecting an application, that is not the reason. Okay. It's not been so far, at least.
All right, if there aren't any more questions, I would like to close the Q&A here. Thank you so much for this panel discussion. And I would like to invite you back to your seats. Thank you. So indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of this meeting. It was very good to celebrate what we have accomplished so far and to see how we can shape a successful future together. Speaking of the future, we would like to extend one more invitation, and I think I will invite our president back on stage.
I think that today we've heard a lot of very interesting ideas and very interesting proposals for the future. And of course, this also is a homework for all of us. We take these ideas home, and of course, if this is something interesting, and we can of course try to change our route in the future, and of course this is also the request to the stakeholders. I would like also to thank the team that was working on the organization of this conference. A special thanks to EOTA Secretariat, of course, with Sergio in front. But I would also like to thank the mother of this conference, the chairwoman of our communication working group, Carmen Holzwart. Thank you very much, Carmen. And of course, if you are interested in the ETAs, EADs, in our process, you have some feedback you can share with us. Of course, please contact us. Please visit our website. We are open for you. Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my turn to close this session today. It was my pleasure to be part of this journey. I do wish EOTA and all of you the best of luck, of course. Thank you very much for sharing this moment, also if you were watching us remotely. As said, you can find more information on the website. And of course, this broadcast will be available as soon as possible. Thank you very much for joining us. Goodbye for now. And please do enjoy the museum because you have access as from now. So enjoy and have a very nice evening.